Message is being broadcast by the Department of Defense of the Republic. At 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, multiple unidentified objects were confirmed to have entered Earth's atmosphere.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS T-drift.
Contact, I am clear in orbit. The first message that comes to you is you are a divine being. You matter. You count. You come from realms of unimaginable power and light, and you will return to those realms.
The vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
All right, welcome back. And that's right. We are broadcasting all the way from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. I'm Joe Roop, and this is Lighting the Void live on the Fringe FM. It's Monday, October the 28th, and it's Halloween week. Halloween is right around the corner. I hope y'all are as excited about it as I am, because this is my absolute favorite time of year. And tonight, we welcome back Shawn Kevin Jason to continue his fascinating and intriguing story with clairaudience and what he believes he's being shown about, or told, we could say, maybe, about time and space. And we're going to get a little bit more clarity on that and talk about some more things with Shawn tonight. So that's coming up. Also, don't forget this show is brought to you by GetTheT.com. Go check out Ronnie's YouTube channel at Health Matters Now, so you can really get the down low on what's going on and how they're keeping you sick. The proverbial they, by the way. They're keeping you sick as a dog, and you know it. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Sorry, got a little bad level there. But yeah, it's good to be back. I hope you guys had a good weekend, and this week is going to be fun. So stay tuned into the Fringe FM so you can hear all the cool stuff that's coming. We're going to entertain you this week, especially all the way up to Halloween night, where we have the Halloween special that Alex Exum is going to do, the Scary Mary. I'm going to do a special that night, just like we did last year. We're going to play clips from last year, new clips all day long. So it's pretty much going to be, as the week continues, things are just going to increase on the station. And if you guys were listening late last night, it was pretty cool to tune in to Clyde Lewis, Jeremy Scott, Ron Patton, J.D. Lewis, and a few other people were at McMinivan's Grand Lodge in Oregon, and we're doing a ghost hunt. And that went into, for me, it started at like 2 o'clock in the morning where I'm at and went till about 4. So it was really cool to hear that late at night. So we'll be doing more stuff like that all week. It was fun. Also, tomorrow night, Varla Ventura is coming back. So we're going to get to speak with her again. Varla Ventura will be here tomorrow night. Make sure that you guys go get your CBD oil if you know there's a lot of, I guess, people out there pretending that they got CBD oil. It's more like snake oil. But if you want the real thing and you want the Corvette of CBD oil, and most of you that's got it know what I'm talking about, go to ancientlifeoil.com and prepareatthefringe.com so you don't get caught unaware. All this crazy stuff with these wildfires, everybody talking about the big one that's going to happen on the West Coast. Man, get prepared. That's all you can do. Pray and prepare. prepareatthefringe.com. So here's the deal. The newer thing that I was telling you about is Optics Planet. Okay. So if you go to thefringe.fm/optics, this place is really cool. I was trying to find the right place for you guys for every night vision and telescope need, because I know a lot of you guys are sky watchers, and I know a lot of you guys are UFO hunters, and you like night vision, and you like telescopes, and I wanted to hook up with somebody that like really had everything going for them. Optics Planet is where it's at, and we don't have the banners up, but I got a link right now. It's thefringe.fm/optics. Optics, and go check it out. That's usually a bigger decision when you purchase stuff like that, but it's life-changing toys, right? And we all love our toys, don't we? And the Psalms, of course. If you all love your magic, go to lightingthevoid.com/Psalms. We are working on the archives. I want to thank Dan for helping me with that. We're about to have that ready for, I actually got an email last week. This guy was begging me. He's like, what do I got to do, man? How much do I got to pay to get commercial-free archives? And it's a lot of work to put all that stuff up there and edit all those commercials out. So when we get that put up, we're going to have it, we're not going to have all of them yet, but we'll be working on it as you join to go all the way back to square one. And it's totally commercial-free archives, plus we're going to be putting added content in there, audio journals, audio books, and some other surprising stuff coming for that. So that's on its way, too. So, and most of you that, what I'm going to do that donate monthly that have been doing that will automatically get put in that as well. So there you go on that. Don't forget Optics Planet, right? thefringe.fm/optics. And speaking of ufology, there's only one place to go, ufoseekers.com. I'm going to grind it into your soul. I want everybody to get behind these people so we can change the game and get the answers we need. ufoseekers.com, at ufoseekers on Twitter, youtube.com/ufoseekers. So this whole nature of space and time, the story, if you guys listen back to Shawn's story, is pretty interesting. And I got a message from a listener that kind of made me think about this, because I'm trying to figure out how consciousness integrates with these types of things. That's what I want to do, because I know that it does. And this is from, we'll just call this person's name L, right? And he said, Joe, I've been following you since you were with a different station, but after you left, you weren't there Saturdays anymore, so I didn't find your station until I turned on to the paranormal radio app, and now it's the only one I listen to. Lighting the Void and the Secret Teachings are awesome, and I feel that I've been in the university studying the fringe. I've always questioned everything. I learned primarily through audio and video means, and I've watched hundreds of YouTube videos and listened to equally as much talk radio. So he goes on to say the main reason, sorry, I'm getting the weather sickness. I know a lot of you guys are getting, the main reason why he was right, he wrote into me to tell him about his OBEs. He's had 5 in total so far. And a little about the guy. He said he grew up in an abusive environment, to say the least. He got the crap beat out of him at home and on the way to school and by his teachers. And he just turned 60 years old, but at the age of 13, he discovered drugs on the street. And he said he was a drug dealer. And at 17, he was picked up by the second largest motorcycle gang in the world. We got to talk to this guy, actually. Long story short, by the time he turned 21, he was almost murdered 2 times. And after a baseball bat beating, he bottomed out. He went to rehab and then took the 12-step program. He had a spiritual awakening then. He began working in the addiction field. I guess to say that means he was helping people. That's very cool. He said, I prayed daily, but didn't start meditating seriously until 1996. My first out-of-body experience was so profound that I thought my mind had snapped. I was brought to an island. I saw a ring of people. They were all people that loved me. Some were people that were alive in this dimension and others had passed over, and I was sobbing uncontrollably. There's the sight for you, right? A big biker guy sobbing uncontrollably. Now, I'd never experienced love like that before. And then next, I was on the beach. I saw an old man with the whitest robe, the whitest hair, and a beard and a long staff. Sounded like Gandalf, right? As he got close, I started feeling the love from, say, about 50 feet away. I was already a sobbing mess. He said, Joe, I was completely effed up. This man was God himself. And he said to me that he saved my life 6 or 7 times. And he simply said, get back on track and help others. I came out of the guided meditation just a complete mess. I was in meditation group with about 20 young women, and I could not stop crying. The leader had no idea what I had experienced. I did have a spiritual director who said that I had a theophany, the burning bush experience. He said that they are extremely rare. Wikipedia actually has a selection on them. I've had another 4 out-of-body experiences since then that I've initiated with the Monroe technique, and deep hypnosis. I also met Christ on 2 occasions. I also have used Buddhist-style techniques to get into a deep trance. There's so much more to say in my exploration of consciousness. You should check into the mystic Marilyn Hughes. Her website is outofthebodytravel.org. She has an amazing story. Anyways, Joe, keep doing what you're doing. You are the very best when it comes to the fringe. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. And that's pretty fantastic that you became, you're in the darkest parts of life. And now look at you, right? You're still a big, tough guy, but you're more in tune with yourself and more spiritual. So that's even better. And I respect that even more. So thank you for writing in about that. I'm going to have to start sharing more because people write in all the time and I just don't share it because I don't know why, but now I'm starting to realize it's an inspiring thing. So yeah, we're going to keep doing that. Now I'm not a big Christian guy or anything. I'm not religious at all. I believe there's truth in every religion, but there is a verse in the Bible. I think it's like in Isaiah 45, 3 or 7. I forget which one it was. And it said, that behold, I will give you dark treasures and hidden secrets or treasures in hidden places so that you will know that I am the Lord. And I used to think about that. Like, is he talking about occultists? Like when you search for the truth in hidden things that you find treasures? But sometimes I wonder if he means that the darkest parts of our life are actually hidden gems. The times when our characters are tested, when we're either about to just totally give up. And that's when we kind of just spawn, so to speak, like this guy did. Pretty cool stuff. All right. Before I get to sobbing here. Now let's continue this discussion. Shawn is back with us. And this was pretty interesting last time. Shawn Kevin Jason, you can check out his page. He's got a Facebook page at facebook.com/Shawn Kevin Jason, a lifetime experiencer and independent researcher. He has been on both sides of the paranormal phenomenon. His work began in earnest after having a close encounter with a black triangle craft in 1996 on the way to Area 51. He's also a self-proclaimed precognitive and believes his ability to foresee future events has led to new insights on the nature of reality and its relationship with the unexplained. His story has been featured in books by authors Kim Carlsberg and Ryan Sprague, and in addition, he has recently made an appearance in Mysteries Decoded on the CW network and an upcoming documentary series on the Trail of UFOs by Small Town Monsters, which is due out in 2020. Shawn, what's up, man? Thanks for coming back on the show.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's a pleasure to be back on.
Yeah, it's good to, like, what was interesting the last time you were on, you were telling us about all these precognitive experiences you had where you would hear these voices that were going to tell you what was going to happen. And we spent the whole show going through each experience. And if you guys want to listen to that, it's in the archives. You can listen to it for free in the free archives anywhere, podcast, YouTube. But at the end, to be honest with you, it was the end of the show where things really got to me, because I did not expect you to say what you were going to say, because I was always under the impression that precognition was just a gift that people had, but you were saying something about, and I would like to kind of get into this a little bit more about, what was it, retrocausality of time, and that you were tapping into that. Now,
so basically, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, go ahead and tell me about that a little bit more, if you don't mind, and then I'll just ask you from there, because it's a very intriguing subject to me.
Well, usually with something like precognition or just psychic gifts in general, we tend to think, well, it's just some special gift that a person has, and most people simply don't have access to that, can't do it, and for whatever reason don't have that gift. But it's really something that we all have, but for whatever reason, some of us versus others somehow are able to, with the muscle, work it out until it eventually produces results in our life, whereas for a lot of people it does not. But it's really just, I won't say a byproduct, but it's part of how we interact with space-time through retrocausality, because right now, causality is the cornerstone of science, but what we're starting to learn is that the future can influence and affect the past. So even though we haven't experienced that future event yet, it's predetermined and it's already changing and influencing the past at times. And so with precognition, we're simply responding to these future events before they happen. And it comes across as, in my case, the voice or the visions, but it comes across and manifests itself in many different ways in order to set about a certain chain of events to produce that future event.
Okay, so yeah, because I've heard a lot of theories on this, like different timelines, and there's all these, separate timelines, and based on our choice, we kind of just pick one timeline or the other. But this is different, right? And I want to kind of say, for anybody listening to the show the first time, what we had talked about previously, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, Shawn, is that as you were growing up, you started hearing audible voices, like pretty much like the voice in our head, except you said yours was extremely loud and extremely apparent, that would tell you, hey, this is about to happen. And there were things like the cops coming in the arcade, or your daughter getting her, hand slammed in the door, or when she was choking. What was she choking on by that? Was a coin or something, or a bottle cap, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and here's the thing about the whole choking incident, and the reason I actually went into that, because the choking incident is what actually led up to those 3 accidents. So it was, as you'll recall in the previous episode where I discussed, escorting her up and down the stairs. And when I would do that, I would envision kind of this mental exercise of her falling down the stairs, and my, kind of preparing, catching her as she fell down and preventing her from rolling all the way down the stairs. But at the same time, when I was, replaying this mental exercise over and over, all that fear and anxiety, all that worry I had when she was actually choking to death, when I was trying to save her life during that incident, I was reliving all that emotion. At the same time, I'm seeing this mental exercise replay over and over. So it kind of had all that emotion, that strong emotion behind that mental exercise when I was escorting her up and down the stairs.
Interesting. Okay, so
excuse me.
Does the fact, see, this is something that I've learned kind of in hermetics and too, and I guess you could say the law of attraction, even magic or whatever, that and we've talked about this with other people too. So when we envision something and we have emotions with it, it kind of gives it some kind of charge for it to manifest even easier, or it has a higher predictability of happening. And this is what I've talked about with other people. Does that seem true to you too?
Yeah, and in fact, I would say this is more how the law of attraction or the secret actually works. Typically it's sold to us as this kind of a magnet, kind of you're attracting something to it by putting out this magnetic force or this energy or whatever you want to call it, when in fact I think it's more about producing an alternate timeline to which that event occurs, and then it produces the chain of events that can lead up to that alternate timeline.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And this is why, you hear people say, hey, what you fear will manifest. Stop, right? It sounds so cliche. But in my experience, Shawn, it's been 100% true. If you fear something, it doesn't, I don't know why. I don't know if it's society. I don't know if it's how we're brought up. But it's so much easier for people to get caught up in their fear and then perpetuate that into emotion and then watch it become manifest in their life. And I've actually experienced this recently, and it seems like a pattern that we can't get out of. We know it. We can't prove it scientifically, but we know deep down when we give into fear, which is just one emotion, right? And then we actually feel that fear when we're having these thoughts. It is really funny how things kind of just turn out to definitely happen in a chain of events for that fear to come true. Yeah, for sure. Why do you think that is?
So
why do you think it's easier for fear?
Well, I think a lot of it is just the unknown. We fear the unknown. We love our security blankets. If you can know everything that's going to happen in advance and there's no unknowns in it, no pop surprises, you have nothing to worry about. But I think we all fear the unknown, what we can't control.
Now, do you still have this today? Are you still experiencing any voices or anything like that where you can hear what's about to happen? Or have you tapped into this now a little better?
There was one more incident, and we didn't get into it on the last show with my sons, but it was kind of different than the other episodes. But still, that was in the same time frame as the accidents with my daughter. It was after the accidents with my daughter that I decided to try to change something about myself, because I come to realize at that point then somehow I'm responsible for these accidents, and if I can't get control of it, then, what's to say I'm not going to cause an accident that may kill one of them or kill anybody for that matter.
Right.
And of course I didn't want that, that on my mind or my conscience. So I started changing just the way I think, changing my personality in a way that I hoped would stop these events from occurring, which apparently it has. I haven't had any incidents since that time. Although now that I do have a better understanding of what it is and how it works, I'm sure it's still there. Even though it's been so long, I'm sure I could reproduce it again. But now it's more of the right reasons if I did or would use it again. And I tend to just shy away from that because I really don't want to mess with it again and end up producing something that's undesirable or unpredictable.
So, but you don't hear the voices anymore. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that was, almost 20 years ago since I last heard it.
Now, why do you think, okay, so this is what I'm trying to clear up, and you'll have to forgive me because sometimes these subjects are a little hard to understand for me. So why do you think the voices actually stopped?
Well, because I was producing them to begin with, so it wasn't like they were random. It was my own choices and actions and my thought processes, that were causing these events to occur to begin with. So once I changed my mind, changed the way I think, changed the way I process things, and get more control over myself, then in turn, it stopped the events from occurring. Like again with my daughter, I was putting all this emotion and worry into a probable or possible future event, when I was doing those mental exercises of her falling down the stairs. So, of course, this is, it hasn't happened. You're thinking about a future event when you're, doing that mental exercise. And by putting all that emotion and energy into it, I thereby produced a retrocausal event by creating a timeline in which that would occur and I would experience. So the whole point of those accidents was with my daughter was the way it was coming out is the universe is like, okay, I see you're worried about your daughter. You want to save her from an accident. Boom, here you go. We're going to let you experience trying to save your daughter from an accident because that's where all your focus and energy is on.
I see. Okay, so if you what you're saying is maybe if you learn to tap into this, like if we learn to tap into this where we get this, I guess, precog moment and we see something that isn't good and it causes us to have fear, if we realize that it's retrocausality, then we can tap into it and shift what's actually going to happen. Or maybe change the surroundings. Like maybe she won't fall all the way down or she'll catch herself here or something. Do you think we could do that?
Well, I mean, there's different ways to use it. So like, with the daughter example, let's say, you're a parent, you have a child, daughter, son, whatever. And you're incessantly worried that something's going to happen to them, something bad. They're going to get into an accident, maybe get hit by a car. So one day you're at home doing some chores around the house, whatever, and instantly you just are overcome with this fear and you hear a voice tell you that your child is in danger. And, maybe you have all the sensations I did. You hear the voice, you get the gut instinct. So any parent in that situation, the first thing they're going to do is check on their kid. It's just instinct. You get this gut instinct feeling that your child is in danger. The first thing you're going to do is go check on them and see if they're okay. So you run out in the front yard because you know that's where they were last at, playing outside. You run out in the front yard and you see your child down the street riding a bicycle, and you start screaming their name, trying to get their attention, get them back to the house, make sure they're okay. So you're screaming her name, and you're worried something as bad is about to happen to your kid. And as you're screaming her name, you see a car coming down the street, and then instantly you're thinking,
right.
This is probably it. This car is probably going to hit them. And as you're screaming her name, suddenly they're drawn to you're yelling at them, and it causes them to make a decision or a choice, what actually puts them right in front of that car, and bam, they get hit by the car and ran over. Now, the accident, like we were talking last week, the accident would have never happened had you not been worried about your child. It hadn't been for all that worry, they would have never got ran over by that car. The only reason they got ran over by the car is you happened to be out there yelling their name at the very precise time needed for them to make a choice that was going to put them in front of that car. So the only reason the accident even happened is because of the worry, which caused them to get ran over. And this is a retrocausal event where, the accident is causing a choice that you're going to make in the past to produce the accident in the future. And in effect, you changed your timeline.
I see. Okay. Interesting.
Now, the interesting thing is that your kid. So think about it like this way. I would say the kid is either dead or maybe severely paralyzed. So you made a choice to put your child in front of this car, which crippled them for life. Now they're paralyzed. And on your timeline, you're going to be living with that for the rest of your life, that your child is paralyzed, crippled, whatever, because of this accident, which you in effect caused through your worry and this retrocausal event. But is it your kid, or is it the perception and your experience with your kid? Is it possible that your child on an alternate timeline didn't even have the accident, and from their perspective on their timeline, they live out life a different person, had that accident never even happened?
I see what you're saying. You know what, too? I've actually got a scenario that lines up with that happened to me, and it really bad. I'm talking about one of the worst car wrecks, probably top 3 car wrecks I've ever seen in my entire life, and it had to do with my family, and it lines up perfectly with what you're saying. So I want to explore this a little bit more when we come back with Shawn Kevin Jason. I'm Joe Roop. This is Lighting the Void. Stay with us.
You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
This is Corbin, son of the one and only Joe Roop, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
In the year 2018, this station produced one of the most terrifying tales ever broadcast on radio. Bigfoot Speaks, Interview with the Sasquatch. This year, we bring you an even more terrifying tale to send chills down your spine. Scary, scary. One night only, October the 31st. Be there if you dare.
Good evening, this is Art Bell, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com. Or to speak with a trained consultant. Give Angioprim a call at 954-882-7221. That's 954-882-7221.
I think by now we can get the information.
I love magic, and on Lighting the Void, each and every week, you will get to hear shows about magic, mysticism, and many other subjects that stretch your mind and imagination. So when I got my mind on the magic and the magic on my mind, I listened to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. It's magic.
May the gods look with favor upon you.
You're wondering what we're going to do to you, aren't you?
Come, walk through the mossy creek and up the hill. Never mind the flashing lights and otherworldly shadows. They stay hidden within the trees. Come, step up to the shack and begin your journey to the answers that you seek. This is Lady Anne, and you are listening to Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM.
Okay, here we go. AncientLifeOil.com. AncientLifeOil.com. Now this is for CBD. AncientLifeOil.com. Again, for CBD. Where do I get CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. It's pretty good stuff. Organic, non-GMO. We are the Ferrari of CBDs. AncientLifeOil.com. You know, they say when you mention a person's name 3 times when you first meet, that you're going to remember. So I'd say to you, nice to meet you, AncientLifeOil.com. It's AncientLifeOil.com, right? Nice to know that you help people. AncientLifeOil.com. Think about this. Occasional stress, occasional anxiety, occasional inflammation, occasional stiffness, and intruders that get you down. AncientLifeOil.com. Okay, so I'm going to give you a fact for the day. So Ancient Life Oil does not help you with business deals. Hold on a second. If you feel better, it could help you make a better decision. Okay, I'm wrong. Just remember to go to AncientLifeOil.com.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to The Fringe FM.
You are listening to The Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335. If you would like to text, you can text in at 501-777-5631.
All right, so we're here with Shawn Kevin Jason tonight. We're talking about, this is part 2 of his story, with the stories of the voices, the precognition, space and time. Very, very cool stuff. And I want to go over that too real quick on this segment here we're about to do, just to let you know kind of the backstory, and I'll do it real quick. So the first time Shawn was on here, he talked about how he used to hear voices, and these voices that would help him just know the future, like the cops are coming, this is going to happen to your daughter, the UFO event, Area 51. I'm not getting detailed because once you go back and listen, that was a 3-hour show, so we can't do the same exact show again. But at the end of the show, he realized that the voice was coming from him. And this new concept of retrocausality is what we're talking about with space and time. And I think all of us have experienced this event, or these events in our life, and how our emotions and our thoughts kind of create reality. So I was going to tell you, Shawn, like what you were talking about earlier happened to me with my father. Now, just real quick, I'll let you know my father is a pretty decent driver, but he's getting old and he was having hard times in his life. And this is another thing that happens, I think, that's weird too, when we have problems with stress events like insurance, financial problems, jobs, you know, the world's coming to an end, or you're about to lose something big like your house or your relationship or something. Anyways, he was having some problems. And what I've noticed is when the universe is looking out for you, it kind of causes things to happen to change your life in a way that's good for you. But sometimes sometimes it doesn't always happen the way we want it to. Sometimes bad things are going to happen. And see, that's what I was thinking, right? And then I started thinking, like I had this knowing that something bad was going to happen to him, and it was going to be like a car wreck or he was going to fall off something. It's just, I don't know. I just had an inkling or a precognition, I guess we could say. The very next day, and I would say the following day after I had some pretty bad emotions about it, I got a phone call from my grandmother, and she said, you need to come up here. And when she says up here, she means the gas station that's 5 miles north of me. And I said, what happened? Like immediately I knew, right? Like what happened? Uh-huh. And she said, well, you just need to come up here, son. And so I jumped in the Dodge. I had a black Dodge Ram then, 2012, with a Hemi in it, right? I jumped in that thing and hauled butt, man. And I got up there, and as soon as I came over the top of the hill, I could see my dad's Oldsmobile flipped upside down and crushed like a can. It looked like a square flipped upside down. And there was a fireman on top of it trying to cut him out of there. And they ended up rushing the fireman to the hospital, too, because he had some type of heat exhaustion while he was trying to get Dad out of the car. And as soon as I saw the car, man, I had just like intense deja vu, this intense feeling of loss, like my father's dead, you know, and I kept saying, not right now, please, not right now, you know. And I literally drove my truck, like pushed people out of the way, cops and everything, and drove my truck up to the front of the car. And, the cops and the firemen were out there. They were trying to keep me back, but I just wanted to get to him, you know. But the weird thing is I've always wondered was it my fear? Like, was it my thoughts and my fear and I don't know other people have thought about this, and the stuff that I was doing in my head, the emotions I was feeling before it happened, did it cause it to happen? Or was it always going to happen? Could I have changed it? You know what I mean?
Well, here's the way you can tell, and here's the way I, would look at my own situation and the different examples I gave on the last program to tell whether you're to blame for the accident or whether it was predetermined. And there was nothing you can do to control it. So in your example, of course, you had this dread, this feeling that something was going to happen, and then you get the call, he's been in an accident, you rush to it. Now, there was nothing in your actions, your choices, that actually caused the accident. So kind of like the example I gave last week with synchronicity, to where, you're watching TV at home and suddenly you think about that old high school friend you haven't seen in, years or decades. And you're wondering how they're doing, and the next thing you know, your phone is ringing. Guess who it is? It's that old high school friend calling you. You're picking up on this predetermined future event that's going to happen, but rather than reacting to it after, which you're going to react to it after it happens, you're also having a reaction to it before it happens. So in your situation, in that situation with the high school friend, you're unknowingly responding to the future event. So you're thinking about your friend, but you're not realizing you're thinking about your friend because he's about to call you. And then with precognition, it's more of, if you were thinking about your friend and then hey, he's about to call me. I get this gut feeling my friend is about to call me, and then the phone rings and he does. So that would be more precognition. That's more or less what you experienced, with your grandfather. Yeah. Now, if you had been the cause of it, it would have been something like, you had this gut feeling he's going to be in an accident, and you decide to go, and you go, to the gas station to warn your grandfather, and somehow he was on the road at the same time, didn't realize it was you. Your choices and actions caused him to make some mistake behind the wheel, and then, ran into the tree or whatever, causing the accident. That would have been where you're responding to this possible future scenario and then making choices that actually cause a self-fulfilling prophecy, basically, where you have some information about the future, you respond and react to it, thus causing the accident to happen. So, in the example of your grandfather, you were certainly picking up on the future event, but you didn't cause it.
Well, good. Well, yeah, see, because I talked to Jason Quitt about this, and he said a lot of times when we get out of alignment, or we get into trouble. And that he was definitely going through that. Like he was, nothing was working out right. Just all kinds of financial stuff was happening. And Jason Quidd even said, he said, well, what'll happen is an energetic thing will happen to cause a transformation. And he even mentioned a car wreck. And when he said that, that made me think, because after Dad got out of that car wreck, everything was fixed. I mean, he got on all the medical stuff he needed to get on. Everything was fine. He just had to go through some suffering, but after that, everything was fine. Now he's well off. He got a better job. He got all the best insurance he could get. And it was strange. It was almost like a birthing period, it felt like. But I got a text in too. I want to read this. It's just my opinion, but I think it's easier to feel fear because it's a survival mechanism. When we let go of fear and put our guard down, we're vulnerable. And some people just can't handle that, or they can't go there. But it's also is that he says it's dark too, caring about somebody so much that you worry about them. You worry about that your caring will kill them. No, it wasn't like that. It was almost like I just knew something was going to happen. And I think when I've talked about this with other people before, and they've all experienced something in that life, in their lives at least once, where they knew, something was going to happen like that. So, yeah, this whole retrocausality thing is a little complicated to me. I understand cause and effect, but it's the retrocausality thing because I believe in choice. So there has to be multiple timelines going on all the time in different dimensions of something.
And that's where, I get a little different on is because, typically we tend to think, okay, let's say you wake up in the morning and you have, who knows how many different outfits, shirts, pants, shorts, jackets, socks, everything you can possibly wear when you get dressed in the morning. So, there's an untold number of combinations between all the clothes you can put on in the morning and between, this pair of pants and that shirt or this jacket and that belt and such.
Right.
So if you think about it, when you get dressed in the morning, how many different possible timelines could you create just by getting dressed in the morning? There's one timeline where you're wearing a green shirt and blue pants, another timeline you wore a red shirt and shorts, another, and it goes on and on and on. And we tend to think of, well, that's how free will works. Is, we have all these choices, and for every choice we didn't make, for every outfit I didn't put on this morning, there's an alternate timeline that started from that point where, I went off and wore that outfit today instead of the one I have on.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a stickler or anything, but your mic is bumping up against something. Those things are really sensitive. It could be your shirt, and it could be doing that for all I know.
No. Yeah, sorry about that.
So no, it's okay. But can you tell me, run me through the triangle craft again, if you don't mind? Like, what happened in that? What did you hear again, one more time, so I can think about that one?
Well, with that, I was at work at the time, and the voice was telling me to go to Area 51, and of course, there was always that physical sensation that would accompany these voices, which is how I would tell it was right on. But the voice was telling me to go to Area 51. I was stuck at work at the moment, and, I was expected to work pretty late that night, but shortly thereafter, the manager had asked if I wanted to leave early that night, and I jumped on the opportunity, stopped at my mom's on the way there, trying to see if I can borrow a camera from my brother, ran home, let the wife know, changed my clothes, and, headed out towards Area 51. And it was on the way out there, I saw the lights way off in the distance, and at first I thought maybe it was another car, I thought at first, and then I thought maybe they were broke down, and then it turned into a police helicopter or speed trap when I realized the lights were hovering over the road, until eventually I'm pulling up underneath the lights, and, I'm looking up at a black triangle UFO that's hovering just above me. And, it sat there for a little while before taking off and heading north to the mountain range just north of me and on the south end of the Nellis Air Force Range.
Okay, see, because a lot of people that have come on the show talked about that too, that either it's been an orb, an encounter, or a UFO encounter where they had this feeling like they were going to see it or someone will say, I kind of knew that it was going to happen. I don't know if it was so much a voice, but they just knew they were about to see something before it happens. And this kind of bogs me down in my brain because I guess I'm a control freak. I don't know. I want to be able to control all aspects of everything in my life if I can, seriously. And I can't, letting go of that and the fact that, okay, there's this story timeline that we're supposed to be on, this destiny type thing, that we can fight it, but it's still kind of the same story no matter what. And that's kind of what I'm starting to get. I think that that we come here for some reason and there's this plot or story that we're going to have to go through, and we can go around it, make different choices, put on different belts, whatever you want to call it, right? But we end up having to come back to this thing for some reason. And it reminds me of another verse in Ecclesiastes says there's nothing new under the sun. When I look at that, I feel like we're all just going through these archetypal stories in these lives, and we think that we're under this illusion. And I swear to God, it feels this way sometimes. That we're under this illusion that we have choice to not do that or not do this. And really, life is going to just push us back in that direction. Do you ever get that feeling?
There's certainly been moments where I've been dealing with this, and and there's days where I wake up and I think, I'm nothing more than just this autonomous robot that's basically moving through life like a motion picture where the future is already predetermined, and I'm simply reacting to things that have already, been decided. But it's a bad place to be too, because you really feel helpless and out of control at that point, and just like nothing. But I don't really think it's like that. Certainly when I look back at my life, all the choices I've made or choices I would have made, and they're a reflection of who I am or was at that time. The whole retrocausality thing is just one more way in which we interact with reality, where a future event is essentially influencing the past and giving us the future we asked for. One way to think of it is like you want to learn to play the guitar. Typically, if we want to learn something, you're going to have to pull out the lessons, the sheet music. You learn how to play chords. You learn, start off with an easy song. You gradually get better with harder and harder songs. And, you move up this learning scale as you get better playing the guitar until you reach the level that you want to get. But with retrocausality, it's more like imagining that you are already the perfect guitar player. You're already that professional, perfect guitar player. And then life throws you into a situation through retrocausality where it puts you down that path to get to that point, to where you're reaching that level that you already see yourself at. And another way, and I don't like to use this example because certainly people shouldn't use it this way. Let's say you want to win a lottery or mega bucks. That's what everyone wants, instant gratification, instantly rich, all this money. And, sure, it's great, but you could use it to, say, win money. Typically we think, well, you go buy your lottery ticket every day, or you go play on the megabucks for a little while, and you do this every day. Eventually you think, well, sooner or later you got to get lucky, and sooner or later you're going to hit it, hopefully. But with retrocausality, if you just see yourself as that winner already, all that emotion you could imagine you would feel if you had won the lottery or won the big one. All that boiled up inside you, if you're letting it out and envisioning that event happening, that's when retrocausality would probably kick in and then lead you down that path, either through some gut instinct, a voice, a vision, to where you're going to be in the right place at the right time in order for that to come to reality, to manifest itself. Like there was an example of a guy a couple of years ago who won 3 lotteries in 1 month.
Yeah, I remember that.
Just
yeah.
winning Yeah, just winning one of them is unheard of, but he had won 3 within, I think, 4 or 5 weeks. And, of course, the odds against that are astronomical. Just one of them, like I said, the odds are against you. But he had won 3. So in that situation, I would say if he did it knowingly or unknowingly, he probably actually was using that technique and had actually manifested or produced those winnings.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, because that's so crazy. I just talked about this the other day. I did that, man. I did that but see, the way I manifested the lottery win was something that I learned in the occult and magic. It's pretty much the same thing as the secret, but I was just kind of tricking my subconscious is all I was doing to put myself in an abundant situation before the action actually happened. But okay, so I'm kind of getting this, and I'm going to try to see if we can go down this road in a different. I don't want to get this too complicated, but look, there is a hermetic law, and everybody knows that I'm a hermeticist, and that to me, that's not even a religion. It's actually just a hidden science. The cause and effect is real. So for every cause, there's an effect, and for every effect, there's a leading cause. And if you look into, like, I guess quantum mechanics, if that's what you want to call it, because I'm going to sound stupid redneck right here, Shawn, but when you look at entangled particles with the double slit experiment too, if one is a wave and the other one are just particles at the end of this experiment, but yet there's some way that you can go back and cause those things to both, even though they're two separate things, the effect are two separate things. If you retrace the steps, they still both go back to being a particle. So it's kind of like quantum physics is showing that in a way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where science has taken us. Right now, science is agreeing with what I'm saying when it comes to retrocausality and how consciousness is influencing this and the future is, influencing the past. In fact, there was a recent article I think I saw where the present and future are happening at the same time. And, it all goes down that path. But then we get into the craziest thing, which is what we touched on last week, is the bootstrap paradox. Like you're saying, cause and effect, everything has a cause, cause and effect, it's just long chain reaction. But when we get into the bootstrap paradox, we're talking about something that is both the cause and the effect, an event or a chain of events which comes into existence from no source, from nothing. And certainly that changes the ball game, because it's these events that, like with my examples, where we see one of these events happen, it alters the world line, it changes your timeline. So like when I was talking last week with the bootstrap paradox, it has a number of different names. It's a bootstrap paradox, retrocausality, self-fulfilling prophecy. There's a bunch of different names for it, ways to describe it. But it's when a future event influences the past in such a way that the influence on that past changes it enough to produce that future event. And it has to, because if it doesn't, then we're talking about a paradox.
Yeah, then it can't work. It has to work both ways, right?
Yeah, it was funny. I was actually watching Twilight Zone today, and it was season 1, and there's this episode where a fighter pilot from World War I was returning to base, and somehow he traveled into the future and landed on an air base, a U.S. air base in France in 1959. And when he landed on the base, of course, they arrested him or drilling him. Hey, what are you doing here? Why are you dressed like this? You look, is this some kind of joke? You're playing on us. And he's explaining, no, I'm a fighter pilot from World War I. You guys are playing a joke on me. And he finds out, some air marshal is coming to the base, which he knew and was flying with that very day. He disappeared and went into the future. And, as the TV show goes on, basically he finds out that this air marshal survived that dogfight that he was running away from, and would go on in World War II to save a bunch of lives. And he realizes that he has to go back in time and go help him. So he ends up in the fight, runs out, jumps in this plane, hops back in the sky, and then the air marshal comes on and realizes, hey, this was the same guy that I was fighting that day with. He had saved my life. So it's kind of like one of those deals where he had to travel into the future, find out what his fate was, that he had to go back in time to fight in this dogfight, save this guy's life so that he can go on to save other people's lives, here in the future. It was one of those things where, it just kind of like we were just talking about, where it just fulfills itself.
Now, did you ever, we're at the top of the hour, but did you ever experience any of this investigating like paranormal? Did you ever do that? Investigate hauntings, paranormal activity, poltergeist activity, anything of that nature?
I've experienced it myself personally, so I never really investigated it other than my own personal experiences with it. So I know we haven't got into that yet. But,
no, that's good.
I've had, you would say ghost experiences or poltergeists, and some other unusual experiences. So when, investigating someone else's case, I'm sure, they're being honest and forthcoming. But it's a little different when you have the experience and some of the background. Of course, it's yourself, so you know a lot more about the situation and can probably dig into it more than if you're investigating someone else's case. You're not going to get inside their mind.
Right, I do want to talk about that because that's interesting that you had those experiences. We haven't even got into that yet. And if you can chime in on this, feel free to. We'll be like this all week, actually. Call-in numbers 1-800-588-0335. I know everybody's had this kind of experience in their life before where they realized that this thing called retrocausality could be true. We'll be right back. Shawn Kevin Jason.
I'm Ryan Gable, and I want to remind you to keep your radio, phone, tablet, or computer tuned to The Fringe FM, and visit the website thefringe.fm to listen to the entire lineup of shows. You can also catch my broadcast, The Secret Teachings, Monday through Friday, beginning at 12 a.m. midnight U.S. Pacific Time, right here on The Fringe FM.
This is Crow 777, and you are listening to The Fringe FM.
Master, we must put on The Fringe FM.
Of course, Igor. Anything else would be monstrous.
Alex X.
Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste-great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
This is Reverend John M. Polk. Please visit me at johnpolkmedia.com and visit my show, Quantum Hologram Matrix, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, every Tuesday on thefringe.fm.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to The Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Hey, is that a new music app?
Yeah, check it out. Surfer Music Discovery. It links to thousands of online stations, but the twist is you see the song names and artists that are now playing live.
That's different. No guessing. Looks like a waterfall of music.
So many formats. Rock, oldies, country, R&B, jazz, and a whole lot more.
How's that spelled?
Surfer. S-U-R-F-R.
Is it expensive?
It's free. No need to sign up or sign in.
Get the Surfer Music app free from Google Play or the App Store.
Listen, I want to tell you about G.I. Joy from GetTheTea.com. It's the best alchemical concoction of goodies for your stomach and digestive system I can recommend, and that's all based on my experience. Packed with colostrum, acidophilus, aloe, peppermint, and turmeric. If you do your own research, then you know this is the bee's knees for the stomach and digestion. Now, due to Big Brother's ears and the eye in the sky, you know I can't go into the details about what it helped me with. All I can say is I got relief. It's non-GMO, no fillers, no preservatives, manufactured right here in the US of A, and delivered to you by the only people who stay on top of the game and are out in front. Go grab a bottle of G.I. Joy at GetTheTea.com and see what all the fuss is about. Again, that's GetTheTea.com.
Hola, Fringe listeners. This is Dave Cruz of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
That's a good kitty. It's time to listen to Joe Roop on Lighting the Void.
To call Joe, pick up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada. You're listening to Lighting the Void Radio.
I want to thank Jason Linger from Crow 777 Radio and the Cult of Saturn for making those promos. I hit up the Fringe host. I was like, hey, y'all send me some Halloween stuff. I don't care what it is. I just want some Halloween stuff. And Jason made a bunch of them. They're fun. So big shout out to Jason Linger. And speaking of shout outs, I wanted to give all of you guys that have shown support this month a real special thank you. Big thank you to Chadwick. Also big thank you to Robert, Amanda, and Stephen, Nick Myers, my brother from another mother, Kate, Genevieve, Travis, Billy, John, Debbie, Barbara, Joe. I'm not saying their last names because I don't know. I don't know if you want me to or not. Jared, Jan, my brothers from Grimerica, Alex Icaris. Thank you guys so much. Maria, Pacho, Larry, and Craig. I need to go back. I want to go back all the way to Tamala, Joseph, Jennifer, and then Vivi and Lynn and Tammy. Thank you guys so much for your support. I appreciate it. If you want to support the show, you can go to the website. There's a donate button there. We really appreciate it. It's at the bottom, or you can grab some of our gear. We've been selling the heck out of those hoodies. So you might actually start seeing people walking around with hoodies this winter with that LTV logo on there. I think that's fantastic. But also, before we get back into our conversation with Shawn Kevin Jason tonight, there's more stuff at the shop. If, I put smaller things in there. So now there's stickers, posters, like what are those iPhone cases, and a cute pair of Lighting the Void socks. So we put little stuff in there too, and we'll be adding more cool stuff to the shop. So thank you all so much for your support. Yeah, so tonight, if you're just tuning in, our guest is Shawn Kevin Jason, and we were talking about his experiences with research, ufology, also as well as his experiences with precognition and this concept of retrocausality, which I'm learning to understand based on what I understand of cause and effect. Because I can just start this off real quick, Shawn. Like, if we can really understand this, what's going on here, there really isn't an excuse why we couldn't change our own lives for the better, like really learn how to manifest stuff in a big way in our own life as well, right?
Yeah, and I think certainly in the next hour we'll get into one example of how I used it to do just that in a way that some people would probably say is just unreal or unbelievable. But certainly there's ways to do it, to change your life.
So, yeah, I want to hear about that. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about that now, and then I'll ask you about the ghost because I don't want to forget it. So what did you do?
Well, at first, I know we left off with, I was talking about that lady in white I had met on the previous show where she gave me just this overwhelming sense of love.
Right.
It actually began, that was the third experience of 3. So the first experience, I actually met a werewolf when I was 7, and this was around 1979, 1980. And eventually I figured out what it was, but at the time, of course, I had no clue. My brother and I had always shared a bed, the bedroom together. We had a bunk bed set. And one night, in the middle of the night, I had woke up, and the way I would wake up when these experiences happened was always very odd. And, I never realized it at the time, but looking back at these experiences, you would see the connections between them. So imagine you're dead asleep, passed out, and suddenly, just like a snap, you wake up, and not just wake up, you're full awake, and you instantly sit up, and you bring your knees into your chest, and you wrap your arms around your legs, almost like you instantly assume a fetal position. So I woke up, instantly assumed this fetal position as though I had just come out of a bad dream, but I couldn't remember anything about this bad dream. Just that you had that feeling like you just woke up from a nightmare. So I wake up, with that feeling, get into the fetal position automatically without even thinking about it. And, I'm like, whatever it was, it's over with now. I'm awake. I'm thirsty. I want to go get a drink of water from the bathroom.
Right.
So I climb down from the top bunk, and I'm walking across the bedroom towards the bedroom door. And I'm halfway across the room when I get this really strange feeling like I'm not alone. And our bedroom window faced the backyard, and it was full of trees, and we had this back light for the back. A street light was our light for the backyard, one of them old-fashioned street lights. It was hanging off of our garage, kind of just to the left of our bedroom. And we had these like sheer lace curtains in our bedroom that was enough that you couldn't see anything with any great detail, but you could still see the backyard. You could still see the lit up trees and whatnot. And my attention is drawn to the backyard, and I look out and I can see these red lights in the backyard. And my first reaction is, oh no, some stranger is in our backyard. They have a red light for whatever reason, and this light is moving towards the house. And I'm thinking, maybe someone's going to break into our house, a burglar or something like that. So I'm watching these lights move towards the house. And as it gets closer to the house, I realize this is not a normal light. It's not like a flashlight or anything. And these lights are really, high up, like head level. And I'm thinking I need to go wake up my dad, let him know there's some stranger in our backyard, probably going to try to break into the house. So I start moving towards the door and the bedroom. By this time, I had already lost sight of the lights. They must have been on the other end of the house towards my parents' bedroom. And I move towards the bedroom door, and I get my hand on the doorknob, and I'm about to open the door when I'm just overcome with this tremendous amount of fear and terror, like being washed over with absolute fear and evil. Because it had this horrible, evil feeling, unlike anything I've ever felt. So I'm standing there facing the door, holding the doorknob, and I look over my shoulder behind me, like one of those moments in the terror horror movie where, you know, you're afraid to look behind you. And I look behind me, and I see this red glow, kind of like the curtains, you know, the lacy curtains are getting this red glow around the light. I don't see what's causing it yet, but it's getting redder and redder and redder. And then I see this humongous silhouette of a beast walking in front of the bedroom window. And its head was as tall as, you know, to the top of the window. And it's just this big, hairy beast with these long arms and these claws and a long snout. And it has these humongous almond-shaped eyes that are glowing blood red. And it stops in front of the bedroom window, and it's just peering into our room. And even though the curtains are closed, you know, I'm still, you know, I'm petrified. I'm just absolutely scared to death because this thing is looking into the bedroom. And even though the curtains are closed and I can still make out the silhouette, I'm still afraid that it could see me. It knows I'm there, but I'm thinking, you know, keep still, keep quiet. Hopefully it won't notice me. Hopefully it'll walk away. And then I can run down to the other end of the house and wake up my parents. So I'm just standing there freaking out and trying to figure out what this thing is. And I had no word for it and no idea what it is. But, you know, I would later realize this thing was a werewolf. But at the time, I didn't know what one was. You know, back then, you know, times were different, and my parents sheltered us growing up, so we weren't exposed to all these horror films and didn't have the internet, all that sort of thing. So I had no word for what this thing was. It was just, for me, a dog creature, a dog man. So after it's done peering into the bedroom, it turns its attention to the right, and it starts walking away. And as soon as it's out of sight, I turn my head back around towards the door, and I'm about to turn the doorknob and just break for it down the hallway to my parents' room. But as soon as I'm doing that, I hear this tremendous crash behind me. And I knew right then and there that thing was in the bedroom with me. And I slowly turn around, and sure enough, you know, this thing is in the room, you know, maybe 8 feet away from where I was. And is looking dead at me with these eyes that I'm just paralyzed at that point, you know, just scared to death. And it's just a tall, well, you know, a werewolf. It's just a tall-ass werewolf with these glowing red almond-shaped eyes. And the eyes, you know, out of all of it, the eyes were just the scariest thing. You know, when you look at these eyes, you're just transfixed by them. Yeah, they're blood red, glowing red. And it didn't rush me. It was just creeping on me really slow. And slowly makes its way towards me. And in my head, I'm just screaming, you know, Mom, Dad, I'm just screaming at the top of my lungs, but nothing is coming out, you know, not even a whisper. I just was absolutely paralyzed with terror. And it eventually gets face to face with me, and I can feel his breath and his stench from his breath right on my face. And rather than grab me or anything like that, it tilts its head to the side and opens up its snout. And then it moves its head into position to where my head is in between its, you know, upper and lower part of its snout, just before it's about to clamp down on my head. And next thing you know, I find myself in bed, waking up, assuming the fetal position. And it was like deja vu, starting all over again from the very beginning of that incident. And I was absolutely petrified because I didn't know what happened. if it's going to happen, if it did happen, I couldn't make heads or tail of the event because the entire thing was, for me, completely real. There's no difference between, that experience I had with that werewolf and this conversation I'm having with you, on the show. You couldn't tell a difference. Of course, when I woke up, I'm looking at the window. I see the window's perfectly intact. So whatever happened, it didn't come crashing through the window. But yet, at that age, because I was like 7 years old at the time, I couldn't really grasp what had just happened. So I cowered under the sheets and just started bawling my eyes out, afraid to do anything until I eventually, fell back asleep. The next morning, I went out to the backyard and investigated. I was looking for paw prints, any type of evidence that this thing was in the backyard that evening. A couple months later, after that incident, I had woke up one morning and the bedroom was almost pitch black. And for me, I was super excited. I love rainy days, so I'm thinking, great, we got a cloudy, rainy day. It's going to pour, and I can go play out in the backyard in the mud. So we had this little creek that ran through our backyard, and kids just love to play in the mud and the water, or at least back then we did. So I was looking forward to it. Run over to the window, pull open the curtains, and it's entirely blocked out by what I thought at first was a bush. And I realized this, I'm looking at the top of a tree, and the tree was pressing up against our window, and it covered the entire window to where you couldn't even see, anything at all, just complete, branches and leaves. And I run and tell my parents, hey, something happened in the backyard, tree fell down. The whole family goes out there to investigate. That night when I saw the werewolf and those eyes, the eyes were situated directly next to this tree. That's where I first noticed these eyes in the backyard, or that werewolf. So this tree had collapsed in our backyard, and it was pointing directly at my bedroom. And there was a lot of other trees in the backyard, fencing, shed. If it had fallen in any other direction, it might have taken out the roof of the house, some of the fencing around it. But it had fallen just a way where it was pointing directly at our bedroom and had taken out nothing. And the strange thing was there was no explanation for why this tree fell. We, checked out the tree. It basically snapped right at the base. There was no storm that night. It wasn't done by lightning, termites. No one cut it down. It was as if the tree right at the base just snapped and killed it.
And is that all when you were a kid, when you saw that? Like, did you ever see anything as an adult?
Yeah, so it would happen again. So this was when I was 7. And, when the tree fell down, I was just scared to death. I didn't tell anyone what I had seen with this werewolf encounter because there is this fear about this event that just talking about it was enough to make it come back for you. So I felt safer just not saying anything, not even acknowledging it, because I was afraid to do so would be like letting the cat out of the bag and it's going to come back to collect kind of deal. So when this tree fell, I was even more scared because, this tree was directly next to this creature I had seen. And somehow, I related these two events together because there was never any reasonable explanation for how this tree just broke right at the base. So years went on, and we, later moved to Germany, and
you all right?
Oh, God. Yeah, no, I was thinking I was in the 7th grade at the time. And, a number of years, like I said, had passed by. And at this time, I totally had forgotten about this werewolf for the most part, because it's one of those things that's so scary, you kind of just want to block it out as if it never happened. And again, one night I woke up and same thing, immediately assumed the fetal position, and there's this overwhelming fear, like you just woke up from a nightmare, a bad dream. But again, I couldn't remember anything about it, just that, you had a nightmare and it's over with. So, I was thirsty. I was thinking I'm going to walk downstairs, go to the kitchen, and get a glass of water. And, I get out of the bed, leave the bedroom, walk down the stairway. As I get to the main floor, I can see that the TV in the living room is still on. So my father had fell asleep in the living room watching TV, and didn't think much of it. I'm walking towards, as I, come down the stairs to the main floor, you're directly facing the dining room door. As the German houses, we're living at the time, are a little different than the way we build houses here in the States. So everything is closed off. So like the stairwell is almost like a room in itself. And walking towards the dining room door, and just when I get my hand on the dining room door and I'm about to open it, I hit that feeling again, like I'm not alone. But not only am I not alone, there's something evil in my presence. And looking over my shoulder again, I see this red glow coming from the basement staircase. And this red glow is getting brighter and brighter as whatever the source of this light is moving up the stairs, coming towards the main floor that I'm on. And it gets bright enough to where the lights kind of break out from the main floor, and I can see, this creature coming up the stairs towards me. Yes. And right then again, I'm just paralyzed with fear, because it was the exact same creature that I had encountered when I was 7. And it's slowly walking up the staircase, taking its sweet time as it's just gradually moving towards me. And again, it's just this towering werewolf hunched over, these long arms hanging down towards the knees, these claws, this humongous snout on it. And again, the large almond-shaped blood red glowing eyes just that would pierce right through you. And it's walking towards me. And same thing as the first time around. It gets up in my face, and the stench of his breath in my face and everything, and it twists its head and opens up its snout to fit my head in between, his upper and lower jaws just before it's about to clamp down on my head. And then again, I find myself waking up in bed, immediately going into this fetal position, only this time, realizing, I just had another encounter with this creature. And again, I, crawl under the sheets and cry myself to sleep.
Wow.
Now, after the first incident, not long after, I think it was maybe a year after, I saw a movie trailer for a movie called, Werewolves in London.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when I saw that trailer, that's when I saw the creature, and I was like, oh my God, that's what I encountered. That's what it looked like. That's a werewolf. Because at the time, I was just calling it a monster, a dog man, whatever. But when I saw the trailer for that movie, I realized, it's the exact same thing I encountered. The only difference was, the one I encountered had these large red, almond-shaped eyes that were glowing.
Man.
But previous to that, I had no idea what this thing was. I had never seen anything like it before. And the second time it happened, I decided to fight back. As a child, I was really into art and design and drawing and painting and all that. And, I was in an honor art society at school and honor roll and all that. And I had access to a lot of different art supplies, and one of which was this very large and long rolls of paper. So I had cut out a long sheet of paper that was the size of our bedroom door. And I decided to recreate this werewolf in full detail, life size, and hang it up on my bedroom door. And I did it to where I would often wake up in the middle of the night, and, you're in that kind of daze in between being awake and being asleep. And I would see this thing, the light would shine on it just in a way to where for a moment I would think, oh my God, here it is again. I didn't realize, it's my drawing, it's my recreation, it's not real, it's my as my creation. So I was kind of using that to, fight it back and tell myself it doesn't exist. It's not real.
So do you think that your drawings influenced, do you think that was retrocausality too? Like based on what you saw, or do you really believe you came in contact with a cryptid?
Well, I eventually discovered what the explanation was for these experiences, and they're quite rare. Not a lot of people have them. I'll certainly get into that after the third experience. But getting into that third one, the lady in white. So, and I know we were talking about this previously, about how you can use this to better yourself, change yourself.
Right.
So after the second one, and it was kind of odd, these werewolf encounters kind of were precursors to dark periods in my life. So the second time it happened, I was a good kid, honor roll, no trouble, maybe not a straight A student.
You know what, Shawn, I'm sorry, we got to take a break here, but that's what, we'll come back with the lady in white, because I remember that was like the last thing you told me. I was so interested in that. I was like, the lady in white, and we were ending the show, and I was like, no, I want to talk about that. So, yeah, that's what we'll talk about when we come back. I want to put this together, too. Pretty interesting stuff, and it is definitely in the spirit of Halloween. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast. Need another late night fix? You can tune in every weeknight to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop on The Fringe FM.
Hi, this is David Oman with HouseAtTheEndOfTheDrive.com. You're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
I like to listen to Lighting the Void because of the guests, the content, and the host, Joe Roop. He's smart, he's intelligent, and he seems to ask the questions that we all have on our mind. We're all searching for the truth, and Joe helps us get closer to it. I love this show. I love this show. I love this show. Lighting the Void.
It's mainstream radio. Let me in! I want to listen to The Fringe FM! Quickly!
This is Paranormal News. I'm Brad Bernards. In honor of the spookiest month of the year, YouGov asked Americans about their belief in various paranormal entities. Turns out that more than 4 in 10 Americans believe that ghosts, demons, and other supernatural beings do exist. More than 1 in 5 say that demons definitely exist, while slightly more believe they probably exist. The numbers are similar when Americans are asked about ghosts. 20% say they definitely exist, and 25% say they probably exist. Far less common is the belief that vampires live among us. Only 13% of Americans say that vampires definitely or probably exist. With 45% of Americans expressing a belief in ghosts, perhaps it's unsurprising that many Americans also believe that ghosts and spirits can come back to haunt certain places on Earth. About 4 in 10 U.S. adults say they think ghosts can come back and haunt people or places. Women are more likely than men to hold this belief.
What do you think happens to your life energy that ceases after you die?
In the first documented case of its kind in India, a woman was recently officially declared dead twice by 2 different city hospitals, and on both occasions she was alive until being declared dead, according to a report in the Times of India. The 45-year-old woman, who was earlier declared dead by another hospital, was brought to the emergency of the Government Medical College and Hospital with a pulse, but died after undergoing treatment for 2 hours. Earlier, the woman was declared dead in the Government Multi-Specialty Hospital. After a gap of 3 hours, when the body was packed and kept in an ambulance, her relatives noticed signs of her body regaining life. In medical terms, this is called the Lazarus phenomena, and worldwide only 38 cases have been reported. This is the first case where the deceased was declared dead with 2 medical certificates from different hospitals. Click on these stories at paranormalradio.com. I'm Brad Bernards with Paranormal News.
What's up, Joe? Hey, man, I just wanted to say your show, dude, keeps getting better and better and better. I love Lighting the Void and the Fringe FM.
Hi, this is Aaron Hunter, host of Real Paranormal Activity, the podcast where we tell real paranormal experiences of people from around the world. And we also conduct interviews with authors, investigators, psychics, and mediums. Real people, real stories, real fear. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on The Fringe FM. See you then.
Hey, this check is wrong. I worked a holiday and 7 hours of overtime. Not getting paid correctly is a real pain. It could also hurt our boss if our company provides out-of-compliance checks. That's right, construction companies doing business with the government can get fined, or officials of the companies can go to jail if the checks aren't right. It's a law. The Davis-Bacon Act has 30 compliance issues for every check, but there is an easy way for construction companies to be in compliance. EMARS offers Compliant Client, a web-based system that finds and corrects all 30 of the possible out-of-compliance check issues. Users of Compliant Client report an 80% savings in time and money. Running a weekly payroll usually takes about 5 minutes. All 15,000 plus clients of EMARS have never had a legal compliance issue. Plus, they sleep better on check day. Contact EMARS at emarsinc.com or call 480-595-0466.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Hello, this is Vance Nesbitt. Take the time to expand your mind by listening to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop right here on The Fringe FM.
You're listening to Lighting the Void. The call-in number is 1-800-588-0335.
All right, welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Roop. Tonight our guest is Shawn Kevin Jason. Tomorrow night, Varla Ventura. And then we're going to do J.M. DeBoard. We're going to get back into the dream world. We're going to talk about some more dark stuff, though, like false awakenings, things like that. And then we're going to have our Halloween special this week. And then open lines Friday night. I think we'll probably do another movie, but interesting stuff. Before we went into the break, Shawn was talking to us about what we left off in the first part of our broadcast, the first show, The Lady in White, your experience with The Lady in White. Now, I want the full account, so if you have to start, somewhere before, leading up to it or whatever, let me know, because I had to cut you off, and you were talking about something about your childhood, and unfortunately, I had to go into a break. But yeah, tell us about the lady and why.
No worries. So, like I was saying, after that second encounter with the werewolf, it seemed to precede dark periods in my life. So this was just before all the abuse started and led me down a dark, and dangerous pathway in my life. So, I was a good kid at that point. I was on a roll and all that. But once the abuse started, I was had the attitude, well, if I'm going to get my butt beat all the time, then it may as well be something that I deserve, So, I started smoking, drinking, hanging out with the wrong crowd. Once we moved back to the States, I started getting bullied and whatnot, and then started acting out even more and kind of just that whole rebellious attitude, and got really heavy into drugs and that whole scene and just running the streets with my friends. And this was, of course, when the whole precog thing started that we covered in the last episode, when I was running the streets and began developing that radar ability. And at the beginning of it all, it was, fun and games and kind of just acting out, being rebellious and getting into the drug scene. But as it went on, like with a lot of people, you have that nagging voice in the back of your head saying, hey, this isn't who you are, you need to change your ways. You need to get that whole guilty voice in the back of your head telling you this, this is not you. Change this, do this, or don't do that. So a lot of times, as it went on, we'd, have some drug-fueled session going on, and I would go to the bathroom and just ream myself in front of the mirror. And even though I wasn't aware of it at the time, I would learn about it later.
What do you mean ream yourself? Like hurt yourself?
No. So, how a lot of times, when people want to prepare for a public speech, they'll stand in front of a mirror and practice their speech over and over to kind of gain that confidence they have, need for the speech, speaking in front of, an audience. So I would go to the bathroom, stare at myself in the mirror, and think of myself as two people. So myself, the I, is that person that I want to be, and I would see myself as this, great kid, student, honor student, straight A's, never did any wrong, kind, considerate, thought of others. And that person I'm looking at in the mirror, that's the drug-fueled, addicted personality person, things about me that I don't like. Everything I don't like about myself, I would project onto my reflection in the mirror. And I would sit there in front of the mirror and kind of point at myself in the mirror and scream at that reflection in the mirror as if we're two different people. I'm the good guy. That person in the mirror is the bad me. And I want to get rid of that bad person. So I would say to myself over and over, I am, and I use this phrase, the exact phrase over and over, I am better than this. I would tell myself, I am better than this. You, on the other hand, are the piece of shit, part of my language that needs to go. You're the one that's causing me all this harm and heartache. Because I realized that, rebelling out was fun in the beginning, but the only person I was hurting most was myself. No one else really cared whether, I was doing all this damage to myself. It wasn't hurting them in any way. It was just hurting myself. And I certainly didn't want to, go down that road to where I'm either dying on overdose or wind up in prison or get myself killed in some, gang shooting or something to that effect. So that person, that better person we all have deep inside of us was kind of crying out, wanting to come out. So every time I was feeling guilty about the things I was doing, I would go to the bathroom and ream myself in front of the mirror and repeat over and over that I am better than this, I am better than this. And it was more than just lip service. You have to wholeheartedly believe that you are, that better person inside of you exists and can exist. And I knew, in my situation that it did because I used to be that person, but, circumstances changed me and I started acting out and rebelling against my parents and society and school and all that. And I didn't want to be that person anymore.
I understand.
So this was going on at the same time the whole radar ability was going on. All this is going on at once. And, you know, we covered it on the last show where, you know, I had this radar ability and suddenly, you know, I'm a better person overnight. And that eventually, you know, we had the baseball accident. So after the whole thing with the I am better than this, one day, you know, I went to bed and I was that person, you know, the drug addicted, rebellious, acting out, you know, heavy metal kid. And the next morning I woke up completely a different person. It was as if I had developed amnesia. I woke up feeling like, you know, the straight A student, the good kid, the polite person, as if the person I used to be suddenly didn't exist. You know, all my addictions, all of that gone. You know, I became a different person instantly overnight, waking up a new person. And so much so that I had like short-term amnesia and didn't even remember half the things I was doing or was into. It's just like, you know, someone else stepped in and the old me stepped out. And this is what led up to the Lady in White. You know, about a month later, you know, I'm a new person now. I developed made new friendships, new habits. I was a completely changed person overnight. And, you know, a week apart, you wouldn't even recognize the old me and the new me. So about a month later, after, you know, this overnight change, came home and I was exhausted, decided to take a nap in the afternoon. Went to bed, shut the door, closed the blinds. A little while later, you know, hours later, I wake up, and again, instantly, I assumed the fetal position right into it. What was different this time was, you know, with the previous examples, it was like I had just woke up from a bad dream, a nightmare that I couldn't remember. But this time, there was no feeling that I had woken up from a bad dream or a nightmare. It's just, you know, I'm awake now. And first thing I realized is it's dark outside. You know, it was sunny out when I had went to bed, but obviously, you know, since then the sun had gone down. It's dark out, and my bedroom door is wide open, and the hallway light is on. And I'm pissed because I'm thinking, okay, either my brother and sister, for one, opened up my bedroom door for whatever reason, and two, they left the hallway light on. And then, you know, I see there's this woman standing in the hallway, and I'm like, you know, who the hell is this? You know, the kids, you know, my siblings let someone into the house, some stranger, and they're standing in my hallway watching me sleep. How awkward, you know. And I'm having all these thoughts when I'm looking at her more closely, and she's just really strange. And I'm thinking, well, this isn't quite right, because for one, the way she was dressed was just gorgeous. It was almost like a wedding dress, but not a wedding dress. It's just this gorgeous, lacy, poofy white dress, which was not revealing in any way whatsoever. So, like, her arms come all the way down to her wrists, and you could only see her hands. And the top part, you know, was like a collar. It came all the way up to her neck. So there's no, like, cleavage or anything like that. Totally a completely modest dress. Couldn't see her feet. You know, the dress went all the way down to the ground. And her hair was just this curly, wavy, golden blonde hair, and these just brilliant blue eyes. And her skin color, her complexion, everything about her was just, you know, we see beautiful things here on Earth, but there's no way to describe beauty on this level. It was like perfection. It's beyond beauty. It's just perfect. And I'd never seen, you know, any woman that looks as beautiful as this person, this lady did. And I was just awestruck by her, just transfixed at looking at her. And then I realized she has this glow. There's just white glow all the way completely around her. And it was about then when I make eye contact with her that I just feel this, like, energy hit my chest, as if there was some kind of link between our hearts. some invisible electric link that connected our hearts together. And that's when I was just struck with this overwhelming sense of love that just touched me to every cell in my body, just radiating with this energy of love.
So she just touched you. That was it.
And then I'm getting the message that she's proud of me, and just this overwhelming sense that she's proud. And I'm not saying why, just, I'm proud of you, and the love that just accompanied that sensation and that message. And I was just floored, because that sensation was so overwhelming. It's like you could just get lost in it and never want to leave. You can just stay in that moment forever, because there's no comparison, to here on earth when we love someone or in love with someone. Even when you're in love for the first time, that first love, as strong as that is, it pales in comparison to the sensation I was feeling from her, that touches you, down to every atom in your body. And I'm getting all this from her, and then boom, I find myself waking up in my bed again, assuming the fetal position. The bedroom door is wide open. The hallway light is on. It's dark outside. The sun had gone down. The exact same settings. And I get the sense or sensation that she's still standing there in the hallway, even though this time now I can't see her. I still have that feeling like I'm still connected to her, and she's still standing in the hallway looking at me, and just feeling that overwhelming sense of love until it just gradually faded out over the next few minutes.
Oh, so it didn't scare you. That's interesting, because I've heard about the lady in white story, and a lot of people get scared. Right? I mean, from what I've heard, because there's an initial sleep paralysis right before that happens. Or did that not happen to you?
No, there is no paralysis at all with her in that experience. Of course, I felt the paralysis when I encountered the werewolf both times, but with her, there is no paralysis at all.
So what do you think that was? Do you think that was your guide or spirit or a relative or what?
Well, years later, of course, I was going to an alien abduction support group and trying to figure out the whole black triangle thing and trying to determine whether this truly was man-made based on the lights I saw, or whether there's something else going on in that play. And, with the werewolf encounter, the intriguing thing was these large almond-shaped eyes. And, of course, you can't escape that description when we were talking about the grays and the whole UFO thing and abductions. And in abductions, there's that thing called screen memories. So a lot of times in the past, we may have these experiences, maybe like the werewolf encounter, to where it was actually an alien abduction, but the mind couldn't process it and deal with it. So instead, it portrayed it as something else. So what may have been an alien abduction was being portrayed as a werewolf encounter. So this was all different things I was looking at when I was trying to determine whether or not, I was an abductee or something else was at play here. But eventually I did learn about a rare sleep phenomenon called the false awakening. Right. And it was describing exactly what I went through. And researching it more, basically the false awakening is where we wake up and go about our daily routine, not realizing we're actually asleep. And you couldn't tell the difference between that state and the actual reality we live in right now, because there's essentially zero difference between the two for the most part. So there may be times in your life where you wake up, go about your normal morning routine. Maybe you go to the bathroom first, you go out, turn on the TV, check the news, put on a pot of coffee and such, and next thing you know, you black out and find yourself back in bed. An experience like that is totally disorienting, because you swear to God you were awake and you were doing your normal routine, when suddenly you find yourself back in bed and you don't know how you got there. Then you realize it must have been some kind of dream, even though it's the strangest experience you've ever had, because it's just the opposite of sleepwalking, where when a person sleeps well, their body is awake, going about the house, doing things, making a sandwich, doing whatever, but upstairs they're completely out of it. They're lost in some dream. And this is kind of the opposite of that, where your body's completely out of it, but consciously you're fully awake and aware and going about your routine as if it's any other normal day. And that's called a type 1 false awakening. And type 2 false awakening is where you wake up and something isn't right about your surroundings. You feel uneasy and you have some kind of encounter with, in my case, a werewolf, and other examples I've heard, shadow people or wolves, or, there's an assortment of things that people may be encountering shortly after they wake up, not realizing they're actually having a false awakening instead of what they, perceive as a real experience.
Wow. Okay. So what does this have anything to do with the retrocausality, though? Or was when you started kind of waking up to it?
Well, it's a completely separate thing from the whole retrocausality thing. I haven't been able to piece the two together. It's just other strange things occurring in my life for whatever reason. Now, even though I can say it was a type 2 false awakening, and as far as the lady in white, there isn't even a category for that one. There's either a type 1, which is you just wake up, go about your routine, or a type 2 where you encounter some kind of monster. I would say she was a type 3, where you wake up, but you're having some kind of, loving kind of divine experience, if you will. But there seems to be some kind of underlying phenomenon as well, because, I realize every one of these experiences, at least for me, started off with assuming the fetal position, both waking up into the false awakening and then waking up after the false awakening. As well, the weird thing was with the werewolf encounters, both times the werewolf approached me just when I was trying to open a door, when I would have my hand on a doorknob, about to open the door, and then this thing attacks me. Whereas with the lady in white, now the door is open. I'm in a dark room, the door is open, the hallway is lit up, and this light is shining, and the door is open for me, and here's this divine figure on the other side of that door. So there seems to be some underlying symbology and message that I still haven't quite been able to decode or grasp or understand what it's really saying and what is going on. So even though I can say, it was a false awakening, there seems to be more at play that I still haven't been able to quite figure out.
Yeah, see, I had a false awakening that was horrifying. I mean, horrifying. I remember specifically that, we all get in these habits as soon as we wake up, and fortunately, my habit was to look at my phone. As soon as I wake up, I grab my phone and look at it. And you know how when you touch your phone, the phone light comes on, the display comes on, right? But I couldn't, every time I hit the button, the display would just blip out. That's all it would do. It would blip out, and I couldn't get it to come on. And I started realizing, I'm asleep, right? And so what I would do is try to wake myself up, and I would try to wake myself up. And it was so freaky. I could feel my eyes shaking as I was trying to wake myself up, like really straining. And then I'd wake up and go, okay, well, I'm awake. And I grabbed my phone. God, it was so weird. I'd grab my phone and touch the screen, blips out again. And it looks so real. You think you're awake. And I'm like, I'm still not awake. Right. So I try to wake up again. Same thing. Now that happens like 4 times before I finally, I think about the 4th or 5th time, I look up and there's this like hooded being looking over my head, or hooded thing. I don't know what the hell it was, honestly. And I was so freaked out by it, Shawn, that I went back to my childhood, and people pray to like Jesus or whatever, except I had been studying some other things in the occult, and anytime I would get caught up in a bad dream or something, I would do certain vibrations. So I vibrated a mantra of Yeshua, and when I did it, this thing moved away from me. And when it moved away from me, it felt like Like, you know how when you're in a pool underwater and somebody moves by you and you can feel it? Right? That's what it felt like. And then when it moved away from me, then I woke up. And ever since then, I felt like that damn thing was keeping me there. It was keeping me in that false awakening, so to speak. That was my experience with a false awakening. Totally different, right? So usually false awakenings are scary events for people.
And that's the thing, too, about them, is because with let's say a normal nightmare we're used to, where you wake up, you're like, okay, it was just a bad dream. I can brush it off. It might linger for a day, but eventually it goes away, and, it doesn't cause any long-term damage. But with a false awakening, because we perceive these events as being real, and we can't separate that reality from our daily reality, it often causes post-traumatic stress disorder with people who have these encounters that lingers for an entire lifetime. So you're talking about people that have these experiences that are so frightening and so scary that it traumatically affects them for the rest of their life. That's the level and intensity of how scary these events are. The few people I've interviewed who've had some of these false awakenings, the type 2s, they're so, even if it happened decades ago, they're still so scared of these events that they're still, like I was, afraid to talk of it, because just talking about it would make it happen again. And it's almost as if the mind is trying to block out the experience because they don't want to remember it, they don't want to talk about it, and just talking about it is often too much for them.
Exactly, yeah.
And there's no studies on this, too. I mean, there's been very few studies on these false awakenings and just how many people have them, and just how deep that rabbit hole goes. There's really nothing out there on it. And certainly, there should be.
Well, I can tell you that Robert Wagner, the guys that study lucid dreaming and dream work, I mean, we've got people in our community like Craven, a.k.a. David, in the community that I'm talking about. Some of these guys need to write their own books. The listeners of this audience, they're really very smart people. And I've got another listener named Jared, where he got him and his buddies listen to the show every night. Well, not every night, but they try to. And they figured out how to lucid dream. And I'm just wondering if the listeners of the show are actually going to start not only lucid dreaming, or when are you guys going to start meeting up and collaborating? You're going to be topping the Monroe Institute before it's all over with. And there's something, too, I want to talk to you about as well, Shawn, when we come back from this break. We'll be right back with Shawn Kevin Jason. Don't forget, too, if you want to join the Fringe FM chat, you can. That's where all the cool people hang out. Just go to the chat room, go to thefringe.fm, and then just hit chat. It'll take you to the Discord server. And
Joseph Roop is your host. Pull back the blinds and uncover the truth. This is Lighting the Void Radio.
You're listening to The Fringe FM.
Somewhere between abnormal and paranormal, there's a show called Into the Paranormal. I'm Jeremy Scott. Hear me live Saturdays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern on the Fringe FM.
Have you ever wondered why we go trick-or-treating, why we put on costumes? Well, around this time of the year, the veil between the physical and the spiritual world is lifted, and that allows for spirits to come into the physical, as well as spirits, people who have died in the physical during the year, to cross over into the spiritual. Now, some of these spirits are perhaps benevolent, and some are perhaps malevolent. So we wear costumes in order to welcome our relatives. We dress up nicely. We leave food out to welcome our relatives. But we also wear costumes. We have jack-o'-lanterns, which come from an Irish myth of a character named Stingy Jack. And we have costumes and candy and food because we want to appease, we want to provide the treat to the malevolent spirits so they don't trick us, so they don't vandalize our homes, so they don't cause harm to our families. And these are the kinds of things that I explore in my book, Occult Arcana, which is available on our website at www.thesecretteachings.info. You can also listen to this kind of information on The Secret Teachings 5 nights a week, Monday through Friday, right here on the Fringe FM. You can read reviews, get a softcover copy or a PDF of this book, Occult Arcana, 500-plus pages, all on our website at thesecretteachings.info. or if you have any other questions, rdgable@yahoo.com is my email. And I look forward to hearing from you. And I wish you a happy Halloween, a happy Samhain, a happy November Eve. As November 1st, some people celebrate the New Year.
Hey, I'm J.M. DeBoard, and when I want to talk about dreams, I look up my man Joe Root and his show, Lighting the Void.
The Fringe FM isn't just a radio station. We also provide services for all your audio production needs. If you are interested in live radio or pre-recorded podcasts, we're here to help. We even do audio enhancements and voiceovers if needed. If you want to do a podcast or live radio show and even want the option to syndicate on terrestrial radio, from simple audio file enhancement to live production and call screening, we have you covered. We have worked with some of the best professionals in the business in order to provide coaching instruction for content creation, show structure, and more. Contact The Fringe Digital Media for more at info@thefringe.fm. That's info@thefringe.fm. Or call 501-777-5631 for a consultation.
Looking for things that go bump in the night? I am Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange Radio, reminding you to tune in to The Fringe FM this Halloween season and listen to all things paranormal, supernatural, and downright scary. Join the Fringe FM Discord channel and chat live with your favorite host and Fringe friends. Whether it's All Hallows Eve, Dia de los Muertos, or Samhain, it's going to get spooky up in here. So scream your heads off with the Fringe FM. Stay strange.
OMG! People are jumping on board to the Life Change Tea Regiment. Brew, steep, and drink for a gentle, taste great cleanse. It's changing how they feel. See what everybody's talking about. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Life Change Tea aids in digestive slowdown and helps people get moving down a healthy path. We won't make claims. We'll just let you decide. Experience is much better than a commercial anyway. If you want results, log on to getthetea.com and purchase your super strength cleansing tea. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for some mind-body suggestions, go to YouTube and punch in the search bar Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. Put power into your health now. So, getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com for super strength tea. And YouTube, Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now for valuable suggestions. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Hi, this is Sammy. Join us in the Deep South as we're lighting the void with Joe Roop on the Fringe FM.
Right, me old Chiners. I know it's an ad break, but before you lot shoot off and make yourself a cup of Rosie Lee or whatever else it is you're going to sling down your Gregory Peck, you need to listen to me babble. If, like me, you found your way to Lighting the Void via a downloadable podcast, you might want to take a butcher's at the Fringe FM Wind and Kite. You won't Adam and Eve how many other shows there are or what they rabbit on about. Ancient history, conspiracy, the consciousness, the esoteric, the occult, metaphysics, parapolitical, ufology, technology, and spirituality, to name but a few. They got featured hosts like Ryan Gable, Jeremy Scott, Alex Exum, Tim Doyle, Cortana and Gigi, Susanna Ross, the Reverend John Polk, Michael Deacon, and J.D. Lewis. You might find yourself listening to the thoughts and theories of the author of the fish you just finished reading. Or you could pick up the dog and bone, call in and tell everyone your own beliefs or experiences. So do me a favour, before you put on the Ansel or crack open a bottle of vino or roll a joint, go to the Fringe FM and see what you're missing.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
up the phone, dial 1-800-588-0335, toll free from the United States or Canada.
You know, it's something I was actually talking to Shawn about our guest tonight during the break, is that we think that science is so far away sometimes from understanding consciousness and everything. Like I even said this not too long ago, is that science explains the least of things. But the more I think about it, man, in all actuality, if we keep going the way we're going to meet in the middle somewhere, and eventually all the occultists or mystics or conscious explorers and void walkers out there, they're going to meet the scientists in the middle where they're all realizing the same thing, and then we're gonna know, right? And that's the thing, is exploring consciousness has changed my life, Shawn. I mean, I don't know about you, but it has, trying to figure out what's going on out there and really understanding that you're more than your physical body, not just thinking about it as a cool concept or being hopeful, but just really understanding that. And I think you've kind of came to that conclusion too, haven't you? Or are you still wondering about that, if consciousness survives after the body dies?
No, I feel certain that it survives past just our physical bodies, and it goes on beyond that, the limitations of reality as we experience it while we're alive. So certainly there's something bigger at play here that we're gradually figuring out, because like you said, as science and the mystics eventually meet somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's like I'm working on this book that's kind of that way, that's showing where old magicians and mystics are talking about what the scientists are talking about today, except, they would call them two different things, where scientists might call something like a consciousness gap, wormhole, portal, something like that. We would, the Egyptians, not the Egyptians, but the ancient mystics and magicians, they would call it, they would do a ritual and maybe draw a certain shape or something, like a pentagram or a hexagram. And it looks evil, the church made us think it was evil, but really what they were doing was tapping into the subconscious. And see, when you're talking about this retrocausality thing, that really gets to me, because it's like, that's still telling me the subconscious is the doorway to all of this. You get what I'm saying? It's like the program behind the program, so to speak.
Yeah, and there's certainly still a lot I haven't covered that deals with that. If we're talking about CTCs or the closed time-like curves, or that first experience I had where, I just had this knowing that the cop car was approaching. All of it, comes together, certainly at some point in the future where these two sides meet and come together. I know at the last hour of the previous show, I was kind of racing through everything because we're running out of time. There's so much we can cover.
No, we're good. Take off,
into the
man.
Details on. Well, when it comes to retrocausality and how it's connected to what we think of as time travel. So, the time travel we know is what we're used to being entertained with, with movies like Back to the Future, The Time Machine, things of that nature, somewhere in time. And that's, our perception of it. Where when it comes to scientists, they're mainly focused on two aspects. One is CTCs, or closed time-like curves, and the other is Einstein general relativity, traveling near the speed of light, which allows you to move into the future. So with CTCs, essentially they're loops that extend, time-like curves or loops, you want to call them wormholes, that extend from every point in space-time. And it's these loops that scientists theorize, if we can somehow build a device with enough energy and travel through one of these, that would allow us to travel through time. And, it was Stephen Hawking who did some work on that, and he didn't believe it was possible because there's nothing we can create that would produce that amount of energy to open one up long enough to move through time. But the question is, why do they even exist to begin with, these CTCs? And I suspect the purpose of these CTCs is providing the pathway, an information pathway for a negative feedback loop. And that's where I kind of got into the whole example with the AC on the last show. If you can think of it like that, these CTCs are basically providing a pathway for information to travel through that's going to influence the past and thereby change it to create that future event. So you can think of it as when it comes to feedback loops, you have a positive or a negative. The purpose of a negative feedback loop is to provide stability to a system, to control it, whereas a positive one is typically destructive or it can be creative. Like a woman giving birth to a baby is a positive feedback loop where it builds and builds and builds until eventually, out comes the baby, we have a new creation. But with the negative feedback loop, it's stabilizing a system. So the cruise control on your car or your thermostat uses a negative feedback loop to control either the speed on your car or the temperature in your house. So when it comes to retrocausality and using that through the CTCs by providing an information pathway for, like I called the air signal. So with the AC, it's creating an air signal when it detects a difference between the desired temperature you want your house at versus the actual temperature. So, you set your thermostat at 72 degrees, but it detects the temperature is at 76. It's thereby creating an air signal which tells the AC to turn on and cool off the house, at which point it's continually monitoring the temperature of your house. Once it reaches 72 degrees, then it knows to turn off because it no longer needs to control that environment. So that's what we're seeing here with retrocausality, and my experiences I was having is when an alternate timeline is being created, it's using this feedback pathway to generate an air signal that comes across as, the voice or the vision or whatever is needed to create that new causal pathway that's going to lead to this alternate timeline.
Wow.
It's pretty in depth, and a good book I would look into. And I don't have the author's name offhand, but the book is called Time Loops, and I had mentioned him briefly on the last show. And certainly him and I, for the most part, are on the same page. And he discusses, a lot of this science behind all of this. And it would definitely be a good book to check out. I actually haven't read it myself. I've got it from talking with the author back and forth and sharing experiences and how we're more or less on the same page and had reached pretty much the same conclusions about how retrocausality is actually behind precognition. And it's nothing super fancy. A lot of people, when we try to describe precognition, it's like it used to be like there's some, spirit guide on the other side who has access to this great hall of library books, that has all the details of the future, and they're accessing these books and then relaying the information to me, and that's how I'm able to communicate it. But it's nothing at all like that.
That's crazy, man. See, and you know what? The thing that they're talking about in chat right now in the Fringe FM chat is when we see things like, I don't know how familiar you are with like spirit totem symbols and animals and stuff, but like when you dream, okay, they've got deeper symbols are supposed to mean something to you. You're supposed to journal it, figure out what it is. And then, but in real life, we don't pay attention to any of this stuff. And I'm getting somewhere with this. Kind of like we got a listener that said, man, a fox just ran out in front of me, right? And sometimes the weird stuff happens like that, and we just think, oh, it's a coincidence. But in a dream, it's never a coincidence. And so if you think about the double split experiment, where the mind is kind of like creating and receiving at speeds that we can't imagine, it's instantaneous, all at once. What are we really doing here? You see what I mean? Like retrocausality and all the stuff is great, but it seems to me like if that's the case, if that's what's really going on, then we're in just some type of big, excuse my French, but some big ass illusion possibly that's been well structured. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's a fear of mine because, imagine the dream. So, we were talking about lucid dreaming. And when I was a kid in the 6th grade, oddly enough, our principal was teaching us how to lucid dream and keeping dream journals, all this sort of thing, which is not normal in, most public education school systems. And later I found out he was doing it for a PhD. So he was experimenting with us, unknowingly. But it was great because it taught me how to lucid dream and experiment with it. And in a lucid dream state, you realize when you wake up, not wake up, but you wake up within a dream, realize you're dreaming, and you take control of the dream, that everything you're experiencing, seeing, doing is all being created by you, whatever it is you're having an experience with. A lot of times when we lucid dream, the first thing we want to do, most people do, is you want to fly. And that's certainly something I do. When I realize I'm in a dream, is, you want to take off and fly and be a bird or whatever. And the funny thing is, though, as soon as you start to doubt yourself or doubt the reality that you can even do it, you begin falling out of the sky. And right. I've done that many times. You get up there flying and you're soaring like an eagle, and next thing you're like, this can't happen. There's no way I can be flying. That's not possible. And boom, you just drop out of the sky like a rock. So your thoughts are forming your reality and, creating the circumstance where you're going to fall just because you believe you can't fly. But then sometimes it takes a twisted turn. Like, well, if I control this dream and I control everything in it, then even the people I interact with are subject to me, and I can control them as well because they're just my creation, if you will. So, taking lucid dreaming even further, you start interacting with people and realize you can mind control them, exactly. And make them do whatever it is you want or please, because they're just figments of your imagination in that dream world.
And see,
of course, the scary part is whether or not this
we're probably thinking the same
different.
thing. Go ahead.
Well, the scary thing is whether or not this reality we're in is no different than that one, and whether or not I'm truly alone in this universe and merely interacting with, my imagination, my consciousness just manifested outside of me, something to that effect.
Right. Well, yeah, there is, the whole separation thing is a mystery to me too, because that's what, people like Teal Swan and others say, that separation is only an illusion. This is the need for relation, right? When we have needs for connection and relation to people, that's because innately the separation is trauma. So birth itself is trauma. It's like cutting off a part of yourself, so to speak, and putting it prisoner, and then putting your consciousness into it. And here's what I think is happening, and I don't want to freak anybody out, okay? But this is what I think is happening. Are you familiar with like the left brain and right brain thing, right? As far as the functions of the mind and the brain and everything at all?
More or less, yeah.
Okay. So the left brain controls logic, reason, math, stuff like that. Usually males are more left brain. I don't want to offend anybody, but usually they are. And then the right brain controls things like, art, creativity, emotion, kind of stuff like that. These two things have been shown to us in occult things like Freemasonry, when you see the two pillars and all this stuff. Mark Passio goes into this a lot deeper than me. When the soul merges with the body, when it separates from like consciousness with everything, and it merges with the body, the only thing that it really needs, if you think about it, is an identity. That's all it needs. Because if it don't have an identity, it doesn't really exist, so to speak. It's just consciousness. But the second that drop of consciousness molds with the human body, it has an identity. And the brain does this kind of like sync thing where I feel like that when I came into my body, one hemisphere, like I took up one hemisphere of my brain more than the other, so to speak, and the other one kind of took over and gave me my identity. And this is kind of trippy, but I've been really studying hard on this, right? So trying to figure this out. Now, once we have an identity, we don't want to lose that identity. It's not death that scares us. It's the loss of our identity. The fact that when we pass away, we're no longer going to matter or be who we were. And this is kind of referred to as like the second death. You know, the body dies, but you still have this identity. But if that identity dies, that's the second death. And that's why a lot of times we have these past life recalls and we think we were this God or that God in the past life. But if you're all consciousness, then you're all connected anyway. So everybody was everybody in a past life. But there's apparently there is something else besides consciousness and humans, right? Or consciousness and flesh. There's something else that's supposed to be created out of this, because there's so many hints to how the human body is like soil, to seed to a soil or whatever, like it's an agriculture in the esoteric. So almost like if we do the right things while we're here, we can create ourselves into something totally different and something that we don't see in the universe, so to speak, like a light body or a different kind of body. Now, that's pretty much in a nutshell what we've talked about on the show quite a bit, but I don't think we're really going to figure that out as humans until we merge science and spirituality. We got to stop looking at it as two separate things and really start trying to put them together, kind of like, you know, Dean Radin or the Monroe Institute or hell, I can think of a dozen places like that. They're just two sides of the same coin, just like the right and the left brain are, just like science and religion is. It's all the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And materialism and then spiritualism, you know, they're just two different things right now, because we have the materialistic approach of science and, you know, and of course religion and all spiritual aspects, you know, complete opposite end of the spectrum, where hopefully they'll eventually meet somewhere in the middle, you know, somewhere in the middle, unless we all kill ourselves first and never reach that point, which hopefully that doesn't happen. But
I mean, I can't even remember being born. I don't remember. Some people can. I don't remember being in my crib or anything like that. And see, that's what freaks me out, because you said the scary part is earlier, the horrifying part is when we understand how the metaphysical realm kind of lines up with the physical realm and how they're interrelated, interconnected, and almost dependent on each other. Then you've got this mind control thing that people know about. So what is the one thing that can keep a society or a group of people in fear? Well, if you look at religion, it's not science, right? Science can, by saying, well, when you die, we have no proof that anything else happens. Not solid proof, right? And then when you look at religion, they say, well, when you die, if you're good, you know, depends on the religion, then you'll be okay. But if not, you're going to get punished. And even some religions say, you're not just going to get punished, but you're going to get punished for eternity. Now, that feels awfully dark to me. That feels awfully controlling, because I've got this feeling that all the stuff that we're searching for right now, and I don't know why, and I know some of you got the same feeling, that somebody already knows the answers to this, and they ain't telling us, and they're here on this planet. That's what I feel. Call me a conspiracy theory, a nutcase, or whatever. There's too much stuff out there, and corporate symbolism in the media, in the news, the history of religion, the history of science, the burying of everything that is not non-conducive to the human spirit, calling it bad. And something's been controlling us from the start. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. And, yeah, I can certainly see that. And of course, if you got a whole bunch of money to throw at this problem, and you got a bunch of brilliant minds behind it, you know, and you have the resources, I'm sure you can get these answers a lot faster than the rest of us would.
Right, yeah.
And then keep that to yourself as well, and, you know, use it to your benefit. So I wouldn't doubt there are groups of people that have the answers that we're just now, starting to even ask questions to.
Yeah, they're trying to. There are people actually right now trying to prolong the dimethyltryptamine state. And if people say, well, that's just drug use and DMT stuff, well, if that's the case, then why in the hell are there multi-million-dollar companies doing these experiments? We know they're doing this stuff. And they're talking to people like machine elves or whatever, man. Like there's something going on that we don't know about. I'm not just trying to freak anybody out, but I think there's something that is actually already here that is trying to make sure that people that think about metaphysical things do not connect the dots. That's why they want to divide us all the time. Politically, they want to divide us by everything, man. You see what I'm saying?
Well, my fears, and I didn't touch on it at all, maybe briefly mentioned it last show, but when we're talking about the air signal in my situation, it came across as the voice or the vision. But the purpose, of course, of the air signal is to create a chain of events that's going to lead up to the future event, that has to happen. It's been predetermined once the course of actions in effect. So there's the possibility that revelation in the Bible is actually an air signal. And the purpose of revelation is to set into action a chain of events that is actually going to lead up to and cause Armageddon to happen. And that may be the whole point of revelation, is to make sure it does happen.
Yeah, see, and the weird thing about, are you saying revelation as far as the Christian Bible, so to speak?
There's Armageddon as we know it.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing. That's why I believe in conspiracy. Like, I know it's real. But one of the reasons why I don't talk about it is cause and effect. Because deep down, I know that if I start thinking about this stuff, and the second my fear emotions get involved, then I'm just contributing to the manifestation of it. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm contributing to making it happen, so to speak. But at the same time, if we bury our heads in the sand, it's like we're trapped. We can't bury our heads in the sand, but we can't talk about it and get all fearful and emotional about it either, because it just manifested even faster. So what are we going to do?
There's pretty much nothing. I mean, if it's predetermined to happen, there's really nothing we can do. It's going to happen, regardless of whether we want it or not. It could be events well beyond our control. But there's a possibility. The Bible is a book of prophecy. That's the whole point of it. And if Revelation just happens to be an air signal, and its purpose for existing was to produce that outcome, then that chain of events is already at play.
Now, can you, dadgummit, we got to take a break, but when we come back, can you talk to me a little bit more about the air signal that you're mentioning here? I think I understand what you're saying, but I have a hard time with this, because this is like a super deep discussion, but I know it's philosophical and da-da-da, but if the predetermined thing, I don't know why I want to fight that so much. Let me figure that out. Maybe you can help us figure it out. So you can also text in the show if you want. If you're too afraid to call. It's 501-777-5631. Just got a few minutes left with Shawn here. Tomorrow night, Varla Ventura will be on the program. We're going to get super esoteric and paranormal with her. And did receive a copy of every one of her books and found some interesting information in there too. So that'll be tomorrow night. We'll be right back with Shawn Kevin Jason.
Intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
In the year 2018, this station produced one of the most terrifying tales ever broadcast on radio. Bigfoot Speaks, Interview with the Sasquatch. This year, we bring you an even more terrifying tale to send chills down your spine. Scary. One night only, October the 31st. Be there if you dare.
Introducing Shadow Light Tarot from Waking Canvas, the Fringe FM's new contributing artist Eric Tesey. This hand-illustrated black and white self-published deck serves as a reinvention of the tarot, never before witnessed. Each of the several suits of this 88-card deck lineup form an infinite panoramic scene. Even the included visual companion guidebook is entirely hand-illustrated, cover to cover, with beautiful visuals and esoteric symbols and artwork. The newly released deck comes in a custom magnetic box with its own travel pouch. The Shadow Light Tarot Premium Deck and its travel-sized mini deck Wonderlight Tarot are both available now from WakingCanvas.com. If you use the code word FRINGE, that's F-R-I-N-G-E at checkout, you'll receive an extra 10% off your entire order. To discover more, including a free reading and time lapses of all the illustrated artwork, make your way over to WakingCanvas.com today. That's WakingCanvas.com.
Ew, yuck. They're unhealthy and gross. Bugs, I hate bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. From contact, it kills bugs. Plus, Orange Guard kills hidden bugs and keeps new bugs away for weeks. I know. I use Orange Guard. Plus, all of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally regarded as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It promotes a healthier planet, and here's a bonus. Orange Guard cleans where it's sprayed. Plus, it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard.
You can get Orange Guard at Ace Hardware. And listen, folks, Orange Guard is tougher than bugs, and it's safe to use. Go to orangeguard.com. That's orangeguard.com.
Ah, it's mainstream radio. Let me in. I want to listen to the Fringe FM. Quickly.
In your face, all over the place. We're online 24/7. 24/7. You're listening to the hottest internet station.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You're listening to the Fringe FM.
This is Dan Lopez with Spiritual Warrior Today Radio, and when I'm battling demons, I listen to Lighting the Void with my man Joe Root right here on thefringe.fm.
We all have that story to tell in our lives. The winds were howling. The ground shook. You could hear rushing water. And then history repeats itself. When there's no power, refrigeration fails. Stores with their shelves strip bare. ATMs can't operate. Deliveries stop. Then what? These events can last days or weeks. You need a plan. In statements made during recent interviews, FEMA Administrator Brock Long has repeatedly urged all Americans to understand three truths. FEMA is broke. The system is broken. If this is the new normal, Americans
can't rely on federal cavalry when disaster strikes. Don't get caught out in the elements empty-handed. Prepare with us by going to preparewiththefringe.com and get your 2-week food supply. 92 servings, 8 food varieties with 25 years shelf life. Normally $137, now only $75. Or get a month's supply, normally $247, now only $147, shipped in 1 business day. Just go to preparewiththefringe.com or call 888-440-7931. That's 888-440-7931. Get this great offer and be prepared while it lasts.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to The Fringe FM.
Thanks for listening to this broadcast. Need another late night fix? You can tune in every weeknight to Lighting the Void with Joe Roop on The Fringe FM.
Bundy on the guitar. Like Bundy on the guitar every late night. So if you hang out with us late night, into the late night, you'll always hear that guitar for sure. Tonight we're here with Shawn Kevin Jason, our guest, the second appearance on the show. And in the spirit of Halloween, I guess what I would like to ask you is about your ghost experiences and maybe your thoughts on that too. Other than just the lady in white and your obvious werewolf experience, what else have you been through with that?
Well, Joe, I know you're just asking about the old air signal. I'll try to cover that towards the end.
Sure.
But with the ghost experiences, this was just before those accidents with my daughter, the whole precog thing, air signal thing. And we had moved to Colorado to a house out in the country, far removed from the city. And these were large plots of land, each 5 to 10 acre lots per house. It was an older house, not that old, but from the 70s. And I always felt uncomfortable when we moved into the house. Just got a weird vibe from the place. And when we first moved in, basically it was kind of like a live-in nanny situation where we had a family that owned the house, lived upstairs, and we kind of rented out the basement, kind of a separate unit downstairs. And the wife was working as kind of the nanny, cook, cleaner deal. And we all lived downstairs, and my son, a few months after we moved in, developed an invisible friend. And, we didn't think anything of it at first, child's imagination. He's about 5 years old at the time, so we didn't put too much thought into it, but he was playing a lot with this invisible friend he had. Who he said was a little younger than him, and he had a name for this kid, to describe what he was wearing, his age, a very vivid, we thought, imagination. And late one night, we were both in bed, and our bedroom was on the opposite end of the units, and they were on the far end, and wake up to hearing a baby boy's cry at our bedroom door. And I'm instantly thinking, it's our youngest son, even though he knew full well how to open a door at that time. He was grown up enough that he can easily open a door. But I figured at least, he had a bad dream, he was frustrated, and for whatever reason, he couldn't get the bedroom door open, to crawl into bed with us and go back to sleep. And, we're both lying in bed, his crying wakes us up, and the doorknob is rattling, and we're yelling, just open the door, come in, it's fine, waiting for him to open up the door. And of course he just keeps, wiggling the doorknob, crying, and finally I get fed up and get out of bed, totally just confused as to why he can't get this door open. And I walk over to the bedroom door, open it up, and kind of did the whole open it, pivot, go right back to bed, figuring he's going to follow me right back in the bed with us. So go open up the door, pivot around, go back to bed, and we're both waiting for him to follow me in, and crawl into bed. And we're waiting, and then we start hollering his name, the door's open, come on in, it's fine, nothing to be afraid of. and it's just completely quiet. So I get back out of bed, and I decide to go investigate and go check in on the boys to see, you know, what happened. And I walk into the boys' bedroom, and they're both passed out in the bed, zonked out. And I can tell neither one of them had been up and was at our door. So right then, you know, the wife and I are just kind of, you know, freaked out, you know, couldn't go back to sleep, trying to figure out what just happened. Because we both experienced, it wasn't just me, you know, we both, you know, were hollering at our son to come into the room and heard the, you know, him crying, or we thought it was him crying at our bedroom door. So that was the first, you know, inkling that, you know, something was kind of strange about this place. It was probably a couple months after that when another incident happened. And that room we were sleeping in, I converted it to my office, and we moved our bedroom next to the boys' room so we can be closer to them. So I'm in that same room, and I'm sitting at the computer, just messing around on the internet. And the room was directly next to the stairwell, which would go upstairs to the main floor. And it was kind of like a really miniature hallway. I don't know what do you even call it a hallway? It's just like one room with a bunch of doors all the way around it, with a staircase attached. And from where I was seating at my office desk, you know, I had a view of every door, you know, the bathroom, the living room, utility closet, the staircase. And I'm just sitting there playing on the computer when my entire family comes running out of the living room. You know, they just swing open the living room door, come running out into my office, screaming and yelling and hollering. And they're all freaked out. And they're all hollering at me at the same time, trying to get something out, you know. And I'm like, you know, what the hell just happened? And, you know, finally I calmed them down. It was my brother-in-law, the wife, and my boys. And from what they described to me, they were in the living room when something was trying to get into the living room through that door, which was right next to me. What they had described was basically some kind of monster or creature was on the other side of the door. And I can hear it clawing at and growling behind the door. And they were watching the door basically kind of like you might see in a horror movie where the door is like pushing in at the center and bulging out as if there's something behind it with such force that eventually the entire door is going to just explode and, shatter into a million pieces of wood flying through the room. You know, and they were just totally freaked out that whatever this thing was clawing at and trying to get into the living room. So, you know, it did that for a while until eventually it stopped. And at that point, they decided to all rush out of the living room at the same time, you know, I guess thinking their safety in numbers, because there was only one way in or out. That was the only way in or out of that whole part of the basement. So they had to come out that door. So, you know, they all rushed out into my office, yelling and screaming after this happened, and wanted to know what it was I saw, because I was on the other side of that door the whole time. And for me, from my perspective, I was sitting there, you know, it was nothing, absolutely nothing at all, complete peace and quiet. There was nothing standing there in front of that door. I saw nothing at all, you know. And typically in cases like this, you know, when we investigate a case, we go by the number of witnesses that report the incident. In this case, you know, 4 people all reported seeing whatever it was behind this door trying to break into the living room, you know, and do whatever it was this thing was planning. And yet I'm the one person that says, you know, nothing happened. You know, there was nothing going on with the door. Of course, I was on the other side of that door. But yes, it was an unusual experience, because here on one side of the door, you know, 4 witnesses are saying this door was bulging in, there was something scratching at it, clawing at it, trying to get into the room. And yet myself on the other side says, you know, the door was completely quiet. There was nothing there. Nothing was happening at all. So, you know, it makes me wonder a lot of times in these cases whether what we're seeing or experiencing is actually physically real, and whether it's not something more like, I won't say hallucination, but whether or not some kind of phenomenon or intelligence can communicate with us through creating these hallucinations that are real, but yet didn't physically actually happen. And then there was a third experience in that living room again, where I was home alone. I had the house completely to myself, and I had came downstairs, was walking into the living room, was going to watch some TV, and after just walking through that same door, I got maybe 8 feet into the room, and this bolt of lightning just shoots out of the electrical socket in the wall, perfectly straight line, parallel to the ground, and then it makes a 90-degree curve and shoots into the ground. And it's just pulsating this really bright white blue light. And at the same time this happens, I hear like a voice say, "Here I am." And as it's pulsating, I hear this, and then it just, gone. And I instantly, I booked, I was out of there, it freaked me out. I turned around, ran up the stairs, ran out the front door, and to the very end of the property, we had a hill. I ran all the way up to this hill and stayed there for a good hour before I even came back to the house. So I had no idea what I had just seen or if this thing was, going to electrocute me, what it was I saw. But eventually I did come back in the house. I inspected the electrical outlet on the wall, inspected where it hit on the floor. No damage of any kind, nothing of any sort. But it was almost like I got the impression that whatever this boy was, if this was truly a case of a young boy haunting the house, that almost I had the sense that that's where his body was buried, was under the concrete floor in the basement. And,
it's two things there. Like, after we've talked to a lot of parapsychologists on here, and they say for sure there's a lot of electromagnetic things that happen when it comes to ghosts or poltergeists even. And secondly, if you ever go to the MonroeInstitute.org, where they study the out-of-body experiences and stuff there, and you go to media, there's a section in there where you can get to free audios. And these free audios specifically are test subjects that are going out of body, and they're speaking to like Robert Monroe and other people as they're going out of body, and they're finding like people that are trapped. Not only are they trapped, they'll actually talk through the person, almost like their consciousness merges, and they talk through the person that's on the bed talking. And there's been several cases where they say that they're trapped in the same scenario, where they can't move on, or they don't understand what's happening still, and they need help to pass through. And you see that in a lot of movies. I watched a movie last night called Scary. It's a new one called Scary Stories or something. And a lot of the movies depict that now too, about trapped souls that die, and they're either angry or they don't know what's going on,
Yeah, I can certainly see something like that in this case, if it was indeed a young boy that maybe was murdered and buried under the basement floor. If that's what happened, how he would be confused and certainly not know what is going on. I did do some research on the house, and oddly enough had found the original owner of the house way back when it was isolated out there on its own. Used to be a construction worker for the school district. So it's like, you have someone who has the know-how to dig up their basement and then refinish it, but at the same time has access to kids. So that was a little frightening for me, but whether or not there is in fact, a body there, or if it's just all a figment of, mine and the entire family's imagination, who knows?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. And, if you can, so what you were talking about was the air signal earlier. Is that a signal that see, this is what I'm trying to understand. Is this a signal that you're giving to yourself from a future timeline, so to speak, like your higher self giving you this signal?
Not necessarily you giving yourself, but as a byproduct of the control system that is automating the process. So like in the example with the air conditioner, all the air signal does is basically tell the system to turn on because it notices a difference between the desired temperature you want the room at and the existing temperature that it's currently at. So if, the room is 76 and you set it to 72, it's going to generate an air signal that is telling it to turn on because, there's a 4-degree difference between, the 72, what you want, and what it's currently at. So this is basically just part of an automated system where if you remove the control system from your thermostat, now it's all manually controlled. You're going to have to turn on your AC, and it's going to remain on until you go manually turn it off. Once it reaches whatever desired temp you want it at. The control system, what it does is completely automates that process to where it doesn't have to be done manually anymore. It automatically senses when the temperature is the right temp and can then thereby turn it off or turn it on if it notices the difference.
Yeah.
So with retrocausality, without that air signal, how would your timeline change? You couldn't have an alternate timeline because you would always be stuck on one timeline. There could never be any altering or, moving away from the existing one because without retrocausality, nothing in the past is going to change to produce that alternate timeline. And that's where the air signal comes in, is because it's basically producing the chain of events, basically turning it on to put you down that pathway to create that alternate future. So the air signal comes across as, the voice or the vision, whatever it is that's needed to produce the chain of events that are going to lead up to the future event that it's causing.
Interesting. Very interesting. So, all I'm going to think about after this is cause and effect, retrocausality, the double slit experiment, and quantum entanglement. I can't help but think that stuff there's a lot to say, and I just don't know how to express it. And I think you understand what I'm saying with that, though, right? And it's kind of like Linda Godfrey explained this to me. When you put a quarter in one of those donation things and it goes down that spiral, until it gets to the bottom, she said usually when you start putting stuff together in your mind, and it makes sense, but you can't express it, right? As that quarter gets closer and closer to the bottom, it gets jumbled up and the parts and the facts get closer, and it's hard to speak about. So to articulate what I'm trying to say about that is I just think that we are affecting our reality more than we imagine. And I know you hear that a lot, but I think it's something on a much, much bigger level than we've been told. And I think you tapped into it, man. So it's very interesting stuff that you talk about with your experiences with this.
Well, thank you, Joe. Yeah, I'm certainly glad to, share my experiences and hopefully shed some light. At least these are my beliefs and what I believe to be true. Whether or not it proves to be true, I guess, only time will tell that.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's true. And if anybody wants to contact you, though, they can. Where can they find you on your Facebook page, right? You need to get you got Twitter?
I have a Twitter account. I don't really use it. I know a lot of people have websites and all that. I don't really put myself out there. But I do have a page where usually I share a lot of articles on different scientific findings and a lot of things that maybe shed light on some of what we talked about, quantum mechanics and different, findings on space-time and that sort of thing. So, yeah, just search my name on Facebook or, facebook.com/Shawn Kevin Jason.
Well, thank you again, Shawn, for coming on the show. It's been a blast having you again, talking to you, kicking off the week here on Lighting the Void. It's really been cool. Thank you for coming on the show again.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Joe. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime, brother, anytime. And also, guys, don't forget, tomorrow night, Varla Ventura, we're going to be talking spooks, the occult, the esoteric, and the paranormal, and all of the stuff that she knows, her second appearance on the show as well. Stay tuned into the Fringe FM for Halloween week. New stuff coming on. Please don't copy the show without written permission. Music was by Chronix, guitar by Bundy. Big shout out to the producer of this show, Pacho, co-producers Don, and everybody over there in the Fringe FM chat. Shout out to Dennis, Chadwick, Amanda. Might as well be co-producers this month. Thank you guys so much for your help. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Good night.
And opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting, its sponsors, affiliates, or staff. Listener discretion is advised.
My life is topsy-turvy.